A struggling mother, running late, crashes into the most powerful man in the city, and in that single, messy moment, two lives collide. From whispered gossip in the streets to cruel headlines calling her a gold digger, she's suddenly trapped in a world she doesn't belong to. He has everything money can buy. She has nothing but faith, pride, and a son who dreams of family. But when the world turns against her, will this powerful man risk his empire to protect the only woman and child who ever saw his heart? Was it really just an accident? Or destiny disguised as spilled coffee? Before we get into the story, comment below where in the world you are watching from today. The morning sun glinted off the glass towers of downtown, casting long shadows across the busy streets. Emma Carter hurried along the crowded sidewalk, her sensible shoes clicking against the concrete as she weaved between suited professionals heading to their offices. In one hand, she clutched her 6-year-old son, Noah's Superman lunchbox. In the other, she balanced a paper cup of steaming coffee, her one small luxury for the day. "Please, don't let me be late again," she whispered under her breath, checking her watch for the 5th time. Her supervisor, Mrs. Randall, had already given her 2 warnings this month about tardiness. Emma couldn't afford to lose this job, not with Noah's school fees and their tiny apartment's rent both due next week. The massive Hayes Grand Hotel loomed ahead, its polished brass revolving doors gleaming in the morning light. Emma picked up her pace, her navy housekeeping uniform already feeling damp with perspiration under her worn jacket. The lobby would be busy now, filled with guests checking out before the 11 o'clock deadline. As she pushed through the revolving door, Emma's mind raced through her morning checklist. Start with the 6th floor, work her way down. Change the linens in 612 first, that guest had requested an early cleanup. Then tackle the crash. The world tilted sideways as Emma collided with something solid. No, someone. Her coffee cup crushed between them, spreading a hot brown stain across one of the most expensive-looking suits she'd ever seen. Emma's heart stopped as her eyes traveled up to meet the startled gaze of a tall, distinguished man with salt and pepper hair and piercing blue eyes. "Oh, my God," Emma gasped, her face burning with horror. "I'm so sorry. I wasn't looking where." Her voice trailed off as recognition dawned. She'd seen that face before, on the massive portrait hanging in the hotel's main conference room. Alexander Hayes, the billionaire owner of not just this hotel, but the entire Hayes hospitality empire. "I'll pay for the dry cleaning," she blurted out, knowing it was a ridiculous offer. The suit probably cost more than she made in 3 months. "I'm so sorry, Mr. Hayes." To her absolute shock, Alexander Hayes didn't look angry. Instead, his lips twitched into what appeared to be an amused smile. "Well," he said, looking down at his coffee-soaked jacket, "I suppose this is one way to wake up in the morning. Certainly more effective than my usual espresso." Emma stared at him, her mouth hanging open slightly. Was he actually making a joke? She fumbled in her pockets for napkins, finding only an old receipt and Noah's crayon drawing of a dinosaur. "Here, let me just," she started, then stopped, realizing she had nothing to offer. Her eyes darted around the lobby, where several guests had stopped to watch the scene unfold. She could feel their stares boring into her, and her cheeks grew even hotter. "Really, it's fine," Alex said, his voice surprisingly gentle. He shrugged off his jacket, revealing a pristine white shirt underneath. "I have more suits than I know what to do with. Though I must say, this is a unique way to meet one of my employees." Emma clutched Noah's lunchbox tighter, wishing she could disappear into the marble floor. "I'm not usually so clumsy, Mr. Hayes. I was running late, and I should have been more careful. And, please," he interrupted, holding up a hand, "call me Alex. And running late, you say?" He glanced at his expensive watch. "Well, we can't have that. Mrs. Randall can be quite." He paused, choosing his words carefully, particular about punctuality. "You know Mrs. Randall?" Emma asked before she could stop herself. Alex's eyes crinkled at the corners as he smiled. "I make it a point to know all my department heads, though some are more memorable than others." There was a hint of something in his voice. Amusement? Understanding? Emma couldn't quite tell. Speaking of which, he continued, I'll walk you to the service area myself and explain what happened. That should prevent any misunderstandings about your tardiness. Oh no, you don't have to, Emma protested, but Alex was already gathering his ruined jacket over one arm and gesturing toward the staff entrance. I insist, he said firmly, though his eyes remained kind. It's the least I can do after standing in your path like a human roadblock. Emma knew she should refuse. She should apologize again and hurry away, try to salvage what was left of her dignity. But one look at his genuine smile made her hesitate. There was something disarming about him, something that didn't match the stern portrait in the conference room or the serious business magazine's covers she'd glimpsed. Thank you, she managed to say, her voice barely above a whisper. But really, I'm the one who should be making this up to you. Nonsense, Alex replied, his eyes twinkling, though I do hope the coffee was at least good. It would be a shame to waste mediocre coffee on a $3,000 suit. Emma felt the color drain from her face at the mention of the suit's price. It was from the cart outside, she admitted weakly. The one that sells it for $1. To her amazement, Alex threw back his head and laughed. A genuine, warm sound that drew even more stares from the lobby's occupants. Perfect! That makes this story even better. Dollar coffee meets designer suit. Sounds like the beginning of a very interesting day. Emma couldn't help but smile, even as she continued to blush. I should really get to work. Of course, Alex said, still chuckling. He gestured toward the staff entrance again. After you, Miss Carter, she supplied. Emma Carter, Miss Carter. He nodded, as if committing her name to memory. Well, shall we go explain to Mrs. Randall why one of her best housekeepers is fashionably late? Emma hurried toward the staff entrance, very aware of Alex's presence behind her. As she reached for her keycard, she snuck one last glance at him. He was watching her with that same curious smile, as if she were a puzzle he couldn't quite figure out. I really am sorry about your suit, she said one final time before swiping her card. And I really am glad for the morning excitement, he replied. Though next time, perhaps we could skip the coffee shower and just say hello? Emma didn't know how to respond to that, so she simply nodded and slipped through the door, leaving Alex standing in the lobby, with his coffee-stained jacket and that enigmatic smile still playing on his lips. Emma's knees ached as she scrubbed at a stubborn spot on the marble bathroom floor of room 624. The cleaning solution burned her nose, but she barely noticed it. Her mind kept replaying the morning's disaster in vivid detail. The shock on Alexander Hayes's face, the spreading coffee stain on his expensive suit, the stares from everyone in the lobby. I heard she dumped an entire cup of coffee on him. A voice drifted in from the bedroom area. Emma recognized it as Betty, one of the newer maids. Right in the middle of the lobby. Shh, she'll hear you, Maria whispered back, though not quietly enough. The sound of pillows being fluffed punctuated their gossip. But can you imagine? Of all people to crash into, she manages to pick the owner himself. Emma scrubbed harder, her cheeks burning. The bathroom tiles began to blur as tears threatened to form, but she blinked them away. She couldn't afford to cry. Not here, not now. Ladies! Mrs. Randall's sharp voice cut through the chatter. Emma heard Betty and Maria scramble to look busy. Less talking, more cleaning. We have VIPs checking in at 4. Heavy footsteps approached the bathroom. Emma kept her head down, focusing on the floor, but she could see Mrs. Randall's sensible shoes in her peripheral vision. Miss Carter. The supervisor's voice dripped with false sweetness. A word, please. Emma's stomach clenched as she stood up, her knees protesting the movement. She smoothed her uniform with damp hands and faced Mrs. Randall, whose thin lips were pressed into an even thinner line than usual. Yes, Mrs. Randall? While Mr. Hayes was surprisingly understanding about this morning's incident, Mrs. Randall began, adjusting her glasses. I want to make something very clear. Your job is to be invisible. We are not here to interact with guests, especially not the owner. Do you understand? Yes, Mrs. Randall. Emma's voice came out barely above a whisper. Good. The supervisor's eyes narrowed. Because the next time you draw attention to yourself, it will be your last day here. We have a dozen applications from people who know how to stay in their proper place. The threat hung in the air like the harsh chemical smell of cleaning products. Emma nodded, not trusting herself to speak. Now finish this floor and move on to the 5th. And do try not to crash into any more billionaires today. Mrs. Zest, Randall turned on her heel, calling out to Betty and Maria as she left. You two, stop dawdling and get to work. Emma returned to her scrubbing, her movements mechanical. Stay invisible. Know your place. The words echoed in her head, mixing with memories of the morning's humiliation. Yet somewhere in the midst of her shame, she couldn't forget the kindness in Alex Hayes's eyes, the way he'd laughed instead of scolded. 12 floors below, in his private office at the Hayes Grand, Alex sat at his desk, unable to focus on the contracts before him. He kept thinking about the morning's collision, not the spilled coffee or his ruined suit, but the look in Emma Carter's eyes. There had been something there, a quiet dignity despite her embarrassment, a strength that intrigued him. Jennifer, he called to his assistant through the intercom. Could you come in here for a moment? The door opened immediately, and Jennifer entered with her ever-present tablet. Yes, Mr. Hayes? That housekeeper from this morning. Emma Carter. What can you tell me about her? Jennifer's fingers flew across her tablet. She's been with us for 3 years. Widowed, 1 child. Perfect attendance record until recently. 2 tardiness warnings this month. She looked up. Would you like me to process her termination? What? No, Alex said quickly, perhaps too quickly, judging by Jennifer's raised eyebrow. No, I was just curious, she seemed. He paused, searching for the right word. Different. Jennifer's expression remained professional, but Alex caught the slight twitch of her lips. Of course, sir. Anything else you'd like to know about her? No, that will be all. Alex turned back to his contracts, pretending not to notice Jennifer's knowing look as she left the office. By the end of her shift, Emma's entire body ached. She'd cleaned 16 rooms, each one requiring the same attention to detail, the same physical toll. Her hands were red from cleaning solutions, and her feet felt like they'd been stomping on concrete all day, which, in a way, they had. She clocked out at exactly 4:30 p.m., careful not to be even a minute late. The last thing she needed was another reason for Mrs. Randall to watch her more closely. Noah was waiting at his after-school program, drawing pictures with stubby crayons when she arrived. His face lit up when he saw her, and suddenly, the exhaustion didn't matter quite so much. Mommy! He ran to her, wrapping his arms around her waist. Look what I drew today! Emma examined the colorful scribble that might have been a dinosaur, or possibly a tree. It's beautiful, sweetheart. Ready to go home? They walked hand in hand down the busy city sidewalk, Noah chattering about his day, about Tommy's new lunchbox, about the class hamster that escaped briefly during math, about the song they learned in music class. Can we have spaghetti for dinner? He asked hopefully, swinging their joined hands. Emma's feet screamed in protest at the thought of standing in the kitchen, but she smiled down at her son. Sure, honey, spaghetti it is. With meatballs? We'll see what we have in the freezer, she hedged, mentally calculating how much ground beef was left from last week's grocery trip. Noah skipped alongside her, unbothered by her non-committal answer. Today was a good day, he declared, except I missed you this morning. You left before I woke up. Guilt twisted in Emma's stomach. I'm sorry, sweetie. Mommy had to go to work early. She didn't mention the coffee incident or how close she'd come to losing her job. Noah didn't need to know about any of that. It's okay, he said with the easy forgiveness of childhood. Ms. Jenny made us pancakes at morning care, but yours are better. Emma squeezed his hand, grateful for his simple love, for the way he could make even the hardest days bearable. How about pancakes for breakfast tomorrow? She offered. I'll wake you up early so we can eat together. Promise? Promise. She'd have to get up even earlier to make it happen, but the joy in Noah's eyes made it worth it. They continued their walk home, Noah's chatter mixing with the city noise around them, while Emma's feet reminded her with every step that there were still hours to go before she could rest. That evening, Emma's small apartment filled with the aroma of mac and cheese, Noah's favorite comfort food. The worn couch cushions sagged beneath her as she sorted through a stack of bills at the coffee table, her reading glasses perched on her nose. The numbers weren't adding up the way she needed them to. "Mommy, Mommy, look what Miss Thompson gave us." Noah burst from his bedroom, waving a bright blue paper in the air. His sock-covered feet slipped on the wooden floor as he skidded to a stop in front of her. Emma pushed aside the bills and took the flyer from his eager hands. "What's this, sweetie?" "It's for our spring concert. I get to play piano." Noah bounced on his toes, his brown eyes sparkling with excitement. "Miss Thompson says I'm really good." Emma's heart swelled with pride as she read the flyer. Her son had inherited his father's musical talent, something she treasured. But her smile faltered when she reached the dress code section. All performers must wear formal attire, boys in dark suits. "Do I get to wear a fancy suit like the man from the hotel?" Noah asked, climbing onto the couch beside her. Emma's stomach tightened. The man from the hotel, Mr. Hayes, was the last person she wanted to think about. "We'll figure something out, honey. Maybe we can borrow one from Cousin Tommy?" Noah's face fell. "But Tommy's suit is brown and old. Billy Matthews says brown suits are for babies." Emma pulled him close, breathing in the grape-scented shampoo she'd bought on sale last week. "Don't you worry about what Billy Matthews says. We'll make sure you look handsome." Later that night, after Noah was asleep, Emma pulled out her emergency savings jar from behind the kitchen cleaning supplies. She counted the crumpled bills twice, her heart sinking. Even the cheapest suit at the discount store would eat up most of what she'd managed to save. The next morning came too quickly. Emma moved through her usual routine at the hotel, trying to stay invisible as she pushed her cleaning cart down the staff hallway. Her supervisor's words from yesterday still stung. "Remember your place, Emma. No more scenes in the lobby." "Miss Carter?" Emma froze at the familiar voice. She turned slowly to find Alexander Hayes standing there, looking impeccable in a navy suit that probably cost more than she made in 3 months. He held a small, elegant shopping bag with a designer logo. "Mr. Hayes, I'm so sorry about yesterday. I should have been more careful," Emma said quickly, her hands fidgeting with her apron. "Please, call me Alex." His smile was warm, genuine. "And that's actually why I'm here. I wanted to give you this." He extended the shopping bag. Emma didn't move to take it. "That's very kind, but I can't accept gifts, sir. It wouldn't be appropriate." "It's not for you," Alex said quickly. "My assistant mentioned overhearing that your son has a school concert coming up. This is for him." Emma's chest tightened. How did he know about that? The thought of hotel staff discussing her personal life made her skin crawl. "I appreciate the gesture, Mr. Hayes, but I don't accept charity." She lifted her chin slightly, summoning every ounce of dignity she possessed. "I can provide for my son." Instead of looking offended, Alex's expression softened with what seemed like admiration. "It's not charity, Miss Carter. Consider it an apology for all the gossip you've had to endure because of our collision." "The gossip isn't your fault." Emma straightened her cleaning cart. "And I'd rather earn what my son needs than have it handed to me. I hope you understand." A look of surprise crossed Alex's face, followed by something else. Respect, maybe? He set the bag down on her cart anyway. "At least keep it as an option. Sometimes pride can cost us more than we realize." Emma watched him walk away, his expensive shoes clicking on the marble floor. Once he turned the corner, she grabbed the bag and walked quickly to the staff break room. She found an empty spot on the back shelf and shoved the bag behind some forgotten lunch containers. Pride might cost her, but it was one of the few things she had left. She couldn't let Noah see her taking handouts, no matter how well-intentioned. She needed him to understand the value of hard work and self-reliance, the same values her late husband had lived by. As she returned to her cart, Emma didn't notice Alex watching from around the corner, his expression thoughtful as he observed her quiet determination. The simple act of refusing his gift had revealed more about her character than any conversation could have. The spring morning sparkled with promise as Emma guided Noah through the wrought iron gates of Liberty Park. After a grueling week of double shifts, she'd promised her son some proper playtime. The early Saturday crowd was thin, just a few joggers and dog walkers circling the walking path. "Can I go play on the monkey bars, Mom?" Noah tugged at her hand, practically vibrating with energy. Emma smiled, adjusting her worn denim jacket. "Of course, sweetie. Just stay where I can see you." She settled onto a weathered wooden bench, clutching her to-go coffee cup like a lifeline. The warmth seeped through her fingers as she watched Noah scramble onto the playground equipment. His laughter carried across the crisp morning air, mingling with birdsong and distant traffic. For the first time in days, Emma felt her shoulders relax. The morning sun painted everything in soft golden light, making even the old playground equipment look magical. She took a long sip of coffee, savoring the rare moment of peace. A golden retriever's excited bark broke through her reverie. Emma's heart skipped a beat as she recognized the man jogging alongside it, Alexander Hayes, wearing expensive running gear that probably cost more than her monthly rent. A light sheen of sweat gleamed on his forehead as he slowed to a walk, checking something on his smart watch. Emma slouched lower on the bench, praying he wouldn't notice her. But Noah had other ideas. "Puppy!" Her son's delighted shriek carried across the playground as he abandoned the monkey bars and darted toward Alex and his dog. "Noah, wait!" Emma called out, but it was too late. The golden retriever wagged its tail enthusiastically as Noah approached. Alex looked up, surprise flickering across his face as he recognized them. "Well, hello there," Alex said warmly, crouching down to Noah's level. "This is Bailey. Would you like to pet her?" Noah nodded eagerly, his small hand reaching out to stroke the dog's soft fur. "She's so pretty! Mom, come look!" Emma's cheeks burned as she forced herself to stand and walk over. "I'm sorry if he's bothering you, Mr. Hayes." "Not at all," Alex smiled, straightening up. "Bailey loves children. And please, call me Alex." Noah was now fully engaged with the dog, giggling as Bailey licked his face. "Does she know any tricks?" "She knows quite a few," Alex said, pulling a tennis ball from his pocket. "Want to see her fetch?" "Yeah." Noah bounced on his toes with excitement. Emma watched nervously as Alex demonstrated how to throw the ball for Bailey. Her son's face lit up with pure joy as the dog bounded after it, bringing it back with proud prances. The morning sun caught Alex's profile, and Emma couldn't help noticing how different he looked in this casual setting, more approachable, almost ordinary, if you ignored the designer running shoes. "You're really nice," Noah declared, handing the ball back to Alex. "Just like Mommy said." Emma's eyes widened. "Noah, but her son wasn't finished. His next words came out clear and loud enough for several nearby joggers to hear. "Mommy says you're my daddy?" The world seemed to freeze. Emma's coffee cup slipped from her suddenly numb fingers, hitting the ground with a dull thud. Hot liquid splashed across her sneakers, but she barely noticed. Alex stood perfectly still, his expression a mixture of shock and something else she couldn't quite read. Several people had stopped to stare, including an elderly couple on a nearby bench who were whispering behind their hands. I never said that," Emma stammered, her face burning hotter than the spilled coffee at her feet. "Noah, why would you—" "But you said he looks just like Daddy in the pictures," Noah protested, confusion written across his innocent face. "And you told Aunt Jenny he was really nice, just like Daddy was?" Emma wanted the ground to open up and swallow her whole. She could feel curious eyes on them from all directions, and Alex's continued silence was making everything worse. "I am so sorry," she managed to say, her voice barely above a whisper. She grabbed Noah's hand, perhaps a bit too roughly. "We need to go, now." "But Mom, can't we play with Bailey some more?" "No, sweetie. We're leaving." Emma started pulling him away, her ears ringing with embarrassment. She couldn't bring herself to look at Alex's face again. "Bye, Bailey. Bye, Mr. Alex," Noah called out cheerfully, completely oblivious to his mother's mortification. Emma walked as quickly as she could without actually running, her son trotting to keep up. She could feel Alex's gaze following them, but she didn't dare turn around. Her mind raced with the implications of what had just happened. The gossip that would surely spread through the hotel staff, The pitying looks she'd have to endure, the questions Noah would inevitably ask later. "Mom, you're walking too fast," Noah complained as they neared the park exit. Emma forced herself to slow down, trying to control her breathing. Behind them, she could still hear the murmur of voices, probably already spreading the story of the maid who let her son mistake a billionaire for his father. "Why are we leaving?" Noah asked, his lower lip starting to quiver. "Did I do something wrong?" Emma's heart clenched at his worried tone. She stopped at the gate, kneeling down to his level despite her urge to keep running. "No, sweetie, you didn't do anything wrong. We need to get home to start lunch, okay?" Noah nodded, though he didn't look entirely convinced. Emma straightened up, adjusted her jacket with trembling hands, and led her son out of the park. She could still feel Alex's presence behind them, like a weight pressing against her back, but she didn't look back. She couldn't bear to see whatever expression might be on his face: pity, amusement, or worst of all, understanding. They were halfway down the block before Noah spoke again. "Can we come back tomorrow?" Bailey was really fun. Emma squeezed his hand gently, fighting back tears. "We'll see, sweetie, we'll see." Emma pushed the peas around her plate, watching Noah devour his mac and cheese with typical 6-year-old enthusiasm. The setting sun filtered through their small kitchen window, casting long shadows across their modest dinner table. Her mind kept replaying that mortifying moment in the park, making her cheeks flush all over again. "Noah, sweetie," she began gently, setting down her fork. "We need to talk about what happened at the park today." Noah looked up, cheese sauce smeared across his chin. "You mean about the nice man with the dog?" "Yes." Emma handed him a napkin. "About what you said to Mr. Hayes. You can't tell people they're your daddy, sweetheart. It's not right." "But he looks just like Daddy in the pictures," Noah protested, his lower lip jutting out. "And you said Daddy had dark hair and a nice smile, just like him?" Emma's heart clenched. She reached across the table to squeeze his small hand. "I know he does, baby. But that doesn't make him your daddy. Remember how we talked about your real daddy being in heaven?" Noah nodded slowly, his enthusiasm dimming. "I remember. But sometimes, I wish." "I know," Emma whispered, fighting back tears. "I wish too. But we have to be careful what we say to people. It could get Mommy in trouble at work, and it might hurt other people's feelings too." "I'm sorry, Mommy." Noah's eyes welled up. "I didn't mean to make you sad." Emma stood and walked around the table, pulling him into a tight hug. "You didn't make me sad, sweetheart. I just want you to understand that we need to be truthful, even when we wish things were different." The next morning arrived too quickly. Emma's stomach churned as she donned her gray housekeeping uniform. She'd barely slept, dreading the inevitable gossip that would spread through the hotel staff. But nothing could have prepared her for the message waiting at the front desk when she arrived. "Mr. Hayes would like to see you in his office," Mrs. Randall announced, her thin lips curved in a suspicious smile. "Right away." Emma's legs felt like lead as she rode the elevator to the top floor. The plush carpet muffled her footsteps as she approached his office, where his assistant waved her straight in. Alexander Hayes stood by the floor-to-ceiling windows, his tall frame silhouetted against the morning light. He turned as she entered, and Emma's breath caught. Noah was right about the resemblance to the photos of his father. "Mrs. Carter," he said warmly, gesturing to a leather chair. "Please, sit down." "Mr. Hayes," Emma began, remaining standing, her hands clasped tightly in front of her. "About yesterday. I need to explain." "Please," he interrupted, his expression gentle. "Call me Alex." Emma swallowed hard. "Mr. Hayes, what Noah said. He only meant that you look like his father. David, my husband, he passed away when Noah was 2. There are pictures around our apartment, and the resemblance, well, it confused him." Alex's face softened with understanding. "I'm so sorry for your loss, Mrs. Carter." "Emma," she corrected automatically, then blushed. "Emma," he agreed, a small smile playing at his lips. "Please, sit. I'm not angry about yesterday. If anything, I wanted to apologize for any discomfort I might have caused." Hesitantly, Emma perched on the edge of the chair. "You have nothing to apologize for. I'm the one who should be sorry. First the coffee incident, and now this. The coffee incident that ruined my favorite suit? Alex's eyes twinkled with amusement. I'd say we're even after yesterday's misunderstanding. Emma felt some of the tension leave her shoulders. Noah. He has such an active imagination, and he's at that age where he notices things, makes connections. Sometimes they're just not the right ones. He seems like a remarkable boy, Alex said quietly. Smart, observant. You must be very proud. I am, Emma admitted, allowing herself a small smile. He's everything to me. Alex moved away from the window, settling into the chair beside her rather than behind his imposing desk. Look, Emma, I know this is an unusual situation, but I'd like to offer something. Friendship. No strings attached, no expectations, just friendship. Emma stared at him, searching for any hidden meaning in his words, but his expression was open, honest. I don't know what to say. Say yes, he suggested with a gentle smile. Let me start by treating you and Noah to ice cream after your shift today, as friends, nothing more. Emma hesitated, years of protective instincts warring with the genuine warmth in his eyes. Mr. Hayes, Alex, I appreciate the offer, but I don't want anyone getting the wrong idea. The staff already gossips enough. And Noah. I understand. Alex nodded, standing slowly. But think about it. Sometimes the best things in life come from unexpected moments, even spilled coffee. Emma found herself rising as well, smoothing her uniform nervously. I should get back to work. Of course. Alex walked her to the door, then paused. Is Noah with you today? At the daycare center downstairs? Emma nodded, surprised he knew about the hotel's employee daycare facility. Would you mind if I said hello to him? I'd like to properly introduce myself this time. After a moment's consideration, Emma led him to the daycare center. Noah's face lit up when he saw them, abandoning his coloring books to rush over. Alex crouched down to Noah's level, extending his hand formally. Hello, Noah. I'm Alexander Hayes. It's very nice to meet you properly. Noah's small hand disappeared into Alex's larger one as he shook it solemnly. Hi, do you remember me from the park? And your dog? I do indeed, Alex replied, matching Noah's serious tone. Though I think we got off to a bit of a confused start, didn't we? Noah nodded, glancing guiltily at his mother. I'm sorry I said you were my daddy. Mommy explained about being careful with words. That's very mature of you to apologize, Alex said, his voice warm. And you know what? I'd be honored to be your friend, if that's okay with you and your mom. Noah's face split into a wide grin, showing the gap where he'd recently lost a tooth. Really? Can we, Mom? Can we be friends with Mr. Hayes? Emma felt her carefully constructed walls beginning to crack at the sight of her son's joy. We'll see, sweetie. Mr. Hayes is a very busy man. Never too busy for friends, Alex replied, straightening up. He gave Noah a final smile and turned to Emma. Think about that ice cream. No pressure. As they watched him walk away, Noah slipped his small hand into Emma's. I like him, Mommy. He's nice. Emma squeezed his hand, watching Alex's retreating figure. Yes, she said softly. He is. Emma pulled her worn jacket tighter as she stepped into Joe's corner store, the little bell above the door announcing her arrival. The familiar scent of coffee and fresh bread wrapped around her like a warm blanket. She needed just a few items, milk, bread, and something special for Noah's lunch tomorrow. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead as she made her way down the narrow aisles. Mrs. Peterson and Linda Matthews stood near the canned goods, their shopping baskets forgotten at their feet. Emma caught fragments of their whispered conversation as she reached for a loaf of bread. That's her, the maid from the Hayes Grand, Mrs. Peterson murmured, not quite quietly enough. The one they say is seeing that billionaire, Alexander Hayes. No, Linda's eyes widened. Really? How desperate must he be? Emma's fingers trembled as she grabbed the bread, her cheeks burning. She'd known the gossip would start eventually, but hearing it in person made her stomach churn. The women's voices followed her to the dairy section. Always thought she put on airs, even after Tom passed, Mrs. Peterson continued. Now we know why. Emma grabbed the milk faster than necessary, almost dropping it. She'd known these women for years. They'd even brought casseroles after Tom died. Now they looked at her like she was somehow different, somehow less. At the checkout counter, Joe smiled kindly as he rang up her items. At least he treated her the same as always. "How's Noah doing?" he asked, bagging her groceries. "He's good," Emma managed, forcing a smile. "Starting piano lessons next week." "That's wonderful!" Joe's genuine warmth helped ease the sting of the gossip. "Tell him I said hello." Emma hurried home, clutching her grocery bag close. The 3-block walk to their apartment felt longer than usual, each step weighted with the whispers she'd left behind. The autumn wind whipped at her hair, and leaves skittered across the sidewalk like the rumors that seemed to follow her nowadays. When she opened their apartment door, Noah sat cross-legged on the living room floor, surrounded by his colored pencils and paper. His tongue stuck out slightly in concentration, just like his father used to do when focused on a task. "What you drawing, sweetie?" Emma set the groceries on the kitchen counter and hung up her jacket. "It's us." Noah held up his artwork proudly. "See? There's you, and me, and Mr. Alex. We're at the park with his dog." Emma's heart caught in her throat. The crayon figures stood hand in hand. Stick-figure smiles stretched across their faces. Alex's figure wore a blue suit, just like the one she'd spilled coffee on. She and Noah stood on either side of him, forming a perfect little family unit. That's very nice, honey." Emma's voice wavered slightly. "Why don't you go wash up for dinner? I'll put your drawing somewhere safe." Once Noah had scampered off to the bathroom, Emma stood holding the picture, her fingers tracing the crayon lines. The simple innocence of a child's drawing somehow made everything more complicated. She opened the drawer of the side table, the one where she kept Tom's old letters and Noah's special artwork, and carefully placed the drawing inside. The sound of running water and Noah's off-key singing drifted from the bathroom as Emma started dinner preparations. She moved through the familiar motions of cooking, but her mind kept wandering back to the drawing in the drawer, to the women in the store, to Alex's kind eyes and gentle smile. After dinner and Noah's bedtime story, Emma finally had a moment to herself. She changed into her worn flannel pajamas and knelt beside her bed, just as she did every night. The moonlight, streaming through her window, cast a soft glow across her clasped hands. "Dear God," she whispered, her voice barely audible in the quiet room. "Please, give me strength. I don't know what to do about these feelings." She paused, gathering her thoughts. "I know people are talking. I know this could hurt Noah if I'm not careful. Please, protect us from scandal, from temptation." Her voice cracked slightly. "Help me remember my place in the world, and help me be content with what I have. Thank you for Noah, for our health, for our home. And thank you for bringing kind people into our lives, even if they can't stay there forever." Emma remained on her knees, the carpet rough against her skin, letting the silence wrap around her like a familiar blanket. In the next room, she could hear Noah's soft breathing through the thin walls. The sound anchored her, reminding her of what mattered most. The drawer containing Noah's drawing seemed to call to her from across the room. Emma squeezed her eyes shut tighter, trying to focus on her prayers instead of the growing warmth in her chest whenever she thought of Alex. She couldn't afford to dream about things that could never be. She had Noah to think about, her reputation to protect, her job to keep. "Amen," she whispered finally, climbing into bed. But sleep would be long in coming, her mind full of concerned prayers and crayon drawings of impossible dreams. The autumn breeze rustled through the maple trees surrounding St. Michael's Elementary School. Colorful banners decorated the playground, announcing the annual fall fundraiser. Children darted between booths, selling homemade cookies and handcrafted items, their laughter mixing with the upbeat music from portable speakers. Emma stood behind the bake sale table, arranging her contribution of chocolate chip cookies on a paper plate. She'd stayed up late last night baking them, wanting to do her part despite their tight budget. Noah bounced excitedly nearby, eyeing the raffle booth where a shiny new bicycle gleamed in the afternoon sun. "Can I buy just one ticket, Mom?" Noah pleaded, his blue eyes wide with hope. "Please?" Emma's heart squeezed. The raffle tickets were $5 each, more than she could justify spending right now. "Sweetie, we need to save for your piano lessons, remember?" Noah's shoulders slumped, but he nodded bravely. "Okay, Mom." He wandered off to join his friends by the painting station. The crowd parted suddenly, and Emma's heart skipped a beat. Alexander Hayes stood at the entrance to the schoolyard, looking decidedly out of place in his casual designer jeans and navy blazer. Several mothers immediately gravitated toward him, their voices rising in pitch. Before Emma could duck behind the bake sale banner, Noah spotted Alex. Her son's face lit up like Christmas morning as he ran full speed toward the businessman. "Alex, you came!" Emma watched, mortified, as Noah grabbed Alex's hand and began dragging him through the carnival. "Come see everything. Mom made the best cookies, and there's a super cool bike in the raffle, and—" Alex allowed himself to be pulled along, grinning at Noah's enthusiasm. When they reached the bake sale table, Emma managed a weak smile. "This is unexpected." "Noah invited me," Alex said simply, his eyes warm. "He called my office yesterday." Emma's jaw dropped. "He what?" "Use the business card you left on the counter," Noah explained proudly. "I told his nice secretary lady all about the fundraiser." Emma closed her eyes briefly, praying for patience. "Noah Carter, we are going to have a serious talk about making phone calls without permission." Alex chuckled, reaching for his wallet. "How much for a plate of cookies?" $2, Emma said stiffly. He placed a $20 bill in the cash box. "Keep the change for the school." Before Emma could protest, he'd moved on to the raffle booth, Noah trailing behind him, like an eager puppy. For the next hour, Emma watched in growing disbelief as Alex systematically bought out every remaining raffle ticket. Other parents whispered behind their hands, but their expressions had shifted from judgment to curiosity. Noah proudly introduced Alex to his teachers and friends as "Mommy's friend," his chest puffed out with importance. When the raffle drawing began, Emma wasn't surprised to hear Noah's name called for the bicycle. What did surprise her was that Alex had written in different children's names on most of the other tickets, ensuring several kids from less fortunate families won prizes too. He'd done it quietly, without fanfare, but Emma noticed. As the fundraiser wound down, Noah wheeled his new bike alongside them, chattering excitedly about its features. Emma started to turn toward their usual route home, but Noah looked up at Alex with hopeful eyes. "Want to walk home with us? You can see where I'm going to put my bike." Emma opened her mouth to make an excuse, but Alex was already nodding. "I'd like that, buddy, if it's okay with your mom?" Put on the spot. Emma could only nod. They walked slowly through the tree-lined streets, Noah between them, occasionally racing ahead on his bike before circling back. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the sidewalk, and a comfortable silence fell over them. Emma snuck glances at Alex as they walked. He looked relaxed, his hands in his pockets, smiling whenever Noah showed off a new trick with the bike. She couldn't reconcile this man with the powerful businessman she'd spilled coffee on weeks ago. "You didn't have to do all this," she said quietly when Noah was out of earshot. "I know," Alex replied, his voice equally soft. "I wanted to." They turned onto Emma's street, lined with modest homes and small front yards. Noah had finally tired of riding ahead and now walked between them, one hand holding his bike handlebar, the other naturally finding its way into Alex's larger one. Emma's throat tightened as she watched her son laugh at something Alex said, their hands swinging between them. The sight stirred something deep in her heart, a yearning she'd tried to ignore since Tom died, mixed with the fear of letting anyone else into their carefully balanced lives. She hugged her arms around herself, feeling both warmed and unsettled by the picture they must make. A small boy holding the hand of a man who looked at him with such genuine affection while she walked beside them, trying desperately not to hope for things that couldn't possibly last. The morning sunlight streamed through the hotel windows as Emma methodically cleaned room 412. Her mind wandered to yesterday's school fundraiser, still amazed at how naturally Alex had fit into their modest world. The memory of Noah's delighted laughter echoed in her thoughts. A gentle knock at the door startled her. "Housekeeping," she called out automatically. "Emma? It's Alex." His familiar voice came through the door. "Do you have a moment?" Emma's heart skipped a beat. She smoothed her uniform and opened the door, finding Alex in his usual impeccable suit. "Mr. Hayes? I'm in the middle of my shift." "Please." "It's still Alex." He smiled warmly. "I actually wanted to discuss something with you and Noah. Are you free this evening?" Mrs. Randall chose that exact moment to walk past, her hawk-like gaze zeroing in on them. "Miss Carter, this room should have been done 10 minutes ago," she said sharply. Alex turned, his expression cooling. "Mrs. Randall, I'm the one keeping Miss Carter. Please adjust her schedule accordingly." The supervisor's lips tightened, but she nodded stiffly and continued down the hallway. "I'm sorry about that," Alex said once she'd gone. "But about this evening?" Emma hesitated. "Noah has piano practice until 6. "Perfect. I'll pick you both up after. There's something I'd like to propose." Before Emma could protest, he was gone, leaving her to wonder what he had in mind. Later that evening, Emma and Noah sat across from Alex in a cozy Italian restaurant. Noah attacked his spaghetti with enthusiasm, while Emma picked at her salad, nervous about why Alex had invited them. "Noah," Alex said, "your mom tells me you're quite good at piano." Noah's face lit up. "I practice every day. Miss Wilson says I'm her best student." "That's wonderful, because I have a special invitation for both of you." Alex reached into his jacket and pulled out an elegant envelope. "Every year, my foundation hosts a charity gala to raise money for children's education. This year, we're featuring young musical talent." Emma's stomach tightened. She could see where this was heading. "Noah, would you like to perform a short piece at the gala? Just something simple, maybe 2 minutes?" "Really?" Noah bounced in his seat. "Can I, Mom, please?" Emma set down her fork. "Alex, that's very kind, but—" "And of course," Alex continued smoothly, "you'd both be my special guests for the evening. The gala is next Saturday at the Grand Ballroom." Noah's eyes were shining. "Mom, I could play Moonlight Sonata. Miss Wilson says I do it perfect." "Perfectly," Emma corrected automatically, her mind racing. The Grand Ballroom meant wealthy donors, society people, probably reporters. "I don't think—" "Please, Mom?" Noah's lower lip trembled. "I promise I'll practice extra hard." "Emma," Alex said softly, "I've heard Noah play. He's talented. This could open doors for his future." She looked at her son's hopeful face, then at Alex's gentle expression. I don't have anything suitable to wear." "That's not a problem. The foundation provides appropriate attire for all our performers and their families." "I couldn't accept—" "It's not charity, Emma. It's part of the performance contract. Everyone gets the same treatment." Noah grabbed her hand. "Pretty please, Mom? I won't ask for anything else, ever." Emma closed her eyes briefly. She could feel the weight of their expectations, but also her own fears. What if she embarrassed herself? What if people looked down on them? What if Noah got hurt? "I need to think about it," she said finally. Later that night, after tucking Noah into bed, Emma knelt beside her own bed. The moonlight cast soft shadows on the worn carpet as she bowed her head. "Lord," she whispered, "I don't know what to do. Noah wants this so badly, and maybe it could help his future. But I'm scared. What if I'm not strong enough? What if I'm just being selfish, letting my pride get in the way of his opportunity?" She stayed there, listening to the quiet, remembering her late husband's words. Sometimes the scariest choices lead to the biggest blessings. The next morning, Emma found Alex in the hotel lobby. He was checking his phone, but looked up immediately when she approached. "Yes," she said simply. Alex's face broke into a warm smile. "Noah will be thrilled. But I have conditions," Emma added quickly. "I'll wear my own dress. I have one from the thrift store. And Noah needs to understand this is about the music, not about—" she gestured vaguely between them. "Anything else, of course," Alex agreed. "Though I hope you'll let me at least have the dress professionally cleaned and pressed. As Noah's performance sponsor, I insist." Emma managed a small smile. "Okay, but that's all." That evening, Emma stood in front of her bedroom mirror, holding up the dark blue dress she'd bought months ago for a church function. The simple A-line cut was modest enough, and the color brought out her eyes. But as she imagined wearing it among designer gowns and diamond jewelry, her hands began to shake. She laid the dress carefully on her bed and sat down beside it, her fingers tracing the soft fabric. From the living room came the sound of Noah, practicing his piano piece for the 100th time, his small face scrunched in concentration. The dress seemed to mock her with its simplicity. In just over a week, she would walk into Alex's world. A world of crystal chandeliers and champagne flutes, of people who spent more on a single meal than she made in a month. She would stand there in her thrift store dress, a housemaid among socialites. Emma caught her reflection again in the mirror. Her face looked pale, uncertain. But then Noah hit a perfect run of notes, and she heard him let out a whoop of joy. The sound steadied her trembling hands. Standing up, she slipped the dress over her head. The fabric settled around her like a gentle embrace. Emma stared at her reflection, heart pounding at the thought of walking into that glittering ballroom. But as Noah's music filled their small apartment, she lifted her chin and straightened her shoulders. For her son, she would find the courage to step into Alex's world, even if it meant facing her deepest fears of humiliation and rejection. She just prayed she would have the strength to keep her heart guarded when she got there. The Hayes Grand Hotel's ballroom entrance loomed before Emma like an intimidating wall of crystal and gold. Her hands trembled as she smoothed down her simple navy blue dress, the nicest one she owned, purchased years ago from a thrift store. Noah bounced excitedly beside her in his freshly pressed suit, oblivious to her anxiety. "Mommy, look at all the lights." Noah's eyes sparkled as he pointed at the crystal chandeliers that hung from the ceiling like frozen raindrops. "It's like a castle." Emma squeezed his small hand, drawing comfort from his innocent wonder. "Remember what we talked about, sweetheart? Best behavior tonight." "I know, Mommy. I practiced my piano piece all week." Noah puffed out his chest proudly. The doorman smiled kindly as he opened the massive double doors for them. Emma's heart pounded as they stepped into a world that until now she had only cleaned and prepared for others to enjoy. The same ballroom where she had arranged chairs and dusted surfaces just days ago now sparkled with an otherworldly glamour. Women in designer gowns that cost more than her yearly salary glided past, their jewelry catching the light. Men in perfectly tailored tuxedos congregated in small groups, their comfortable laughter speaking of privilege and ease. Emma felt every eye turn toward her, measuring her worth in a single glance. "Emma!" Alex's warm voice cut through her rising panic. He appeared before them, handsome in his black tuxedo, his smile genuine and welcoming. "You made it. And Noah, don't you look sharp?" Noah beamed up at Alex. "Mom helped me tie my tie all by myself." "Did she now?" Alex knelt to Noah's level, examining the slightly crooked tie with exaggerated seriousness. "Excellent work, young man. Very professional." Emma watched their interaction, her throat tight with emotion. Alex stood and turned to her, his eyes softening as they met hers. "Emma, you look beautiful." She blushed, acutely aware of her dress's modest cut and lack of designer label. "I'm afraid I'm a bit underdressed." "Nonsense," Alex said firmly, offering his arm. "You look perfect. Shall we?" As they walked into the main ballroom, Emma felt the weight of curious stares. She heard the whispers start, the same ones she'd heard countless times while cleaning these rooms. The words "maid" and "gold digger" seemed to float on the air like poison, but Alex's arm remained steady under her hand. He guided them through the crowd with easy confidence, stopping to introduce them to various guests. "Emma Carter," he would say, his voice filled with respect. "And her son, Noah. Noah's going to favor us with a piano performance later." To Emma's surprise, many of the guests responded with genuine warmth, especially when Noah charmed them with his bright smile and polite manners. An elderly woman in diamonds clasped Emma's hand, saying, "What a delightful young man you've raised." They passed a group of society women Emma recognized from her cleaning rounds. Their perfectly made-up faces couldn't quite hide their shock at seeing her on Alex's arm. One of them, Mrs. Peterson, whose suite Emma had cleaned just last week, raised a perfectly plucked eyebrow and whispered behind her champagne glass to her companions. Emma felt her cheeks burn, but then she remembered something her late husband used to say, "Stand tall, Em. You're worth more than their judgment." She straightened her spine and lifted her chin, meeting their stares with quiet dignity. "The string quartet is about to start," Alex murmured, steering them toward their table. "And I've arranged for Noah to play right after them." Noah's eyes widened. "Really? On that big piano?" He pointed to the grand piano gleaming on the small stage. "That's right, buddy. Think you're ready?" "Yes." Noah bounced on his toes, then remembered his manners. "I mean, yes, sir. I practiced lots." As they settled at their table, right at the front, Emma noticed with a mixture of pride and anxiety, Alex pulled out her chair with natural courtesy. The tablecloth was crisp white linen, the kind she usually worried about staining while cleaning. The crystal glasses sparkled under the chandelier light, and the silver place settings gleamed. More whispers followed them, like shadows in the golden light. Emma caught fragments. "That hotel maid. Can't believe he brought her. What is he thinking?" But then she saw something that made her pause. Alex was looking at her, not with pity or embarrassment, but with something that looked remarkably like pride. He leaned closer, his voice low and sincere. "You know what I admire most about you, Emma? Your grace under pressure. These people," he gestured subtly to the whispering crowds, "they've never had to work as hard as you have. Never had to show the strength you show every day." Emma felt tears prick at her eyes, but she blinked them away. Noah tugged at her sleeve, pointing excitedly at the string quartet taking their places. The musicians raised their instruments, and the first notes of Mozart filled the air. Sitting there, with Noah's small hand in hers, and Alex's quiet strength beside her, Emma felt something shift inside her. The whispers continued, the stares lingered, but they seemed to matter less now. She was still the same Emma Carter, single mother, hard worker, woman of faith. If these people couldn't see her worth beyond her job title, that was their loss. She held her chin high, let her shoulders relax, and allowed herself to simply be present in this moment. The music swelled around them, beautiful and timeless, while Noah swayed slightly in his chair, his fingers moving in silent practice on the tablecloth. Emma caught Alex watching her with a soft smile, and for once, she didn't look away. The ballroom glittered with 1,000 points of light, from the chandeliers above, from the jewelry adorning the guests, from the polished surfaces she herself had helped maintain. But now, instead of feeling like an outsider looking in, Emma felt something new, a quiet certainty that she belonged exactly where she was, exactly as she was. The grand ballroom sparkled with elegant table settings, fine china catching the light from overhead chandeliers. Emma sat stiffly in her chair, hyper-aware of her simple navy dress among the designer gowns that surrounded her. Noah fidgeted beside her, fascinated by the multiple forks laid out before him. "Which one do I use first, Mommy?" he whispered, loud enough for nearby guests to hear. "Start from the outside and work your way in, buddy," Alex answered smoothly from Emma's other side. He demonstrated with his own silverware, and Noah copied him with careful concentration. A woman in a red sequined gown at their table, Mrs. Bradford, according to her place card, watched this exchange with poorly concealed disdain. Her heavily jeweled fingers tapped against her wineglass as she leaned toward her husband. "How quaint," she said, voice dripping with condescension. "It's so charitable of you, Mr. Hayes, to include your staff in these events, though one would think they'd make an effort to dress appropriately." The table fell silent. Emma's cheeks burned as she stared down at her lap, where her hands had balled into fists. Noah looked up, confusion crossing his young face at the sudden tension. Alex set down his fork with deliberate care. When he spoke, his voice was quiet but carried an edge of steel that Emma had never heard before. "Mrs. Bradford," he said, "I invite guests to my events based on the quality of their character, not the price of their clothing. Emma Carter has shown more grace, dignity, and genuine kindness in the brief time I've known her than I've witnessed from many who frequent these gatherings." Mrs. Bradford's face flushed an ugly shade of red. "I merely meant—" "I know exactly what you meant," Alex cut in. "And I suggest you reconsider your assumptions. Emma works harder in one day than most people do in a week. She raises her son with values that money can't buy. Her presence here elevates this entire evening." Emma's heart pounded as Alex's words rang through the uncomfortable silence. Several other guests had turned to watch the exchange, and she could feel their stares boring into her. "Mommy," Noah whispered, tugging at her sleeve. "Can I go play my song now?" Emma welcomed the distraction. "Of course, sweetheart. Let's get you ready." Alex stood to escort them to the baby grand piano that waited in the corner of the ballroom. As they walked away, Emma heard the distinct sound of Mrs. Bradford's chair scraping back as she excused herself from the table. "You didn't have to do that," Emma murmured to Alex. "Yes, I did." His hand brushed her elbow gently. "No one speaks to you that way. Not in my house." At the piano, Noah climbed onto the bench with determination. He'd been practicing his piece for weeks, and excitement had replaced his earlier nervousness. Alex stepped forward to make a brief introduction to the gathered crowd. "Ladies and gentlemen, we have a special treat tonight. Young Noah Carter has prepared a piece for us." Noah's small voice piped up before Alex could continue. "I want to dedicate this song to my new friend, Mr. Hayes. He's really nice to my mommy and me, and he shows me cool magic tricks." Gentle laughter rippled through the crowd. Emma's eyes misted as she watched her son place his fingers carefully on the keys, just as his music teacher had shown him. The first notes of "Ode to Joy" rang out clear and true. Noah played with the intense concentration only a child can muster, his tongue poking out slightly at the corner of his mouth. He missed a few notes here and there, but his enthusiasm never wavered. Emma's heart swelled with pride as she watched him, this beautiful boy who had been her reason for living through the darkest days after his father's death. When the final notes faded away, the ballroom erupted in genuine applause. Noah beamed and took an exaggerated bow, just as he'd practiced at home. As he ran back to Emma's arms, she caught sight of Alex's face. He was watching them with an expression that made her breath catch. Warmth, admiration, and something deeper that she wasn't ready to name. For a moment, their eyes met across the space between them, and Emma felt a flutter in her chest that had nothing to do with anxiety. "Did I do good, Mommy?" Noah asked, hugging her tight. "You did wonderful, sweetheart," she answered, pressing a kiss to his forehead. "I'm so proud of you." Alex approached them, kneeling down to Noah's level. "That was excellent playing, Noah. You've been practicing hard, haven't you?" Noah nodded eagerly. "Every day. Mommy says practice makes perfect." "Your mommy is very wise," Alex said, standing up. His eyes met Emma's again, and this time his smile held a warmth that seemed meant just for her. "She's taught you well." Emma felt herself glowing under his praise, no longer caring about her simple dress or the whispers that might still be circulating around the room. In this moment, with her son's arms around her waist and Alex's gentle gaze upon them both, she felt like the richest woman in the room. The orchestra began to play again, filling the ballroom with elegant music. Noah tugged at Alex's sleeve. "Can you show me that coin trick again? The one where you make it disappear?" "Noah." Emma started to protest, but Alex was already pulling a quarter from his pocket. "I'd be happy to," he said, winking at the boy. "Magic is always better with an audience who believes." As Alex began his sleight of hand for Noah's delighted eyes, Emma watched them together. The sophisticated billionaire and her small son, heads bent close, in shared conspiracy over a simple coin trick. The sight stirred something in her heart, a dangerous hope she'd thought long buried. But for now, she simply enjoyed the moment, letting herself bask in the warm glow of pride and possibility. The orchestra shifted to a slower melody, the violins singing a tender waltz that floated through the grand ballroom. Emma watched other couples glide across the polished floor, their movements graceful and practiced. She felt worlds away from their elegance, even as she sat at one of the best tables in the room. Alex turned to her, his bow tie slightly crooked from laughing at one of Noah's jokes earlier. "Would you care to dance?" he asked, extending his hand with a gentle smile. Emma's heart skipped. "Oh, I don't really know how," she admitted, smoothing her simple navy dress nervously. "Neither do I," Alex confessed with a playful wink. "We can figure it out together." Noah bounced in his seat. "Go dance, Mommy. You look so pretty tonight." Emma hesitated, but Alex's hand remained steady, waiting. With a deep breath, she placed her fingers in his. His palm was warm and strong as he helped her to her feet. "I'll watch you," Noah called after them, waving enthusiastically. Alex led Emma to the edge of the dance floor, away from the spotlight. He placed his right hand carefully on her waist, holding their joined hands at shoulder height. Emma's left hand trembled slightly as she rested it on his shoulder. "Just follow my lead," he murmured. Small steps. They began to move, and Emma's initial stiffness gradually melted away. Alex guided her, with gentle pressure, making her feel secure, despite her inexperience. The sweet melody wrapped around them like a cocoon. "You're doing wonderfully," Alex said softly. Emma ducked her head, fighting a smile. "You're just being kind." "I'm being honest. It's one of my better qualities." She looked up then, meeting his warm brown eyes. For the first time in years, she didn't feel like a maid, a widow, or even a mother. She felt like a woman, seen, appreciated, cherished. "Thank you," she whispered. "For what?" "For making me feel." She paused, searching for the right words. "Like I belong here." Alex's hand tightened slightly on her waist. "You do belong here, Emma. You belong anywhere you choose to be." They continued dancing, and Emma found herself relaxing into the rhythm. The judgmental stares from other guests seemed to fade away. The weight of her daily struggles lifted, if only for these precious moments. "Noah's quite talented on the piano," Alex said after a while. "His performance earlier was impressive." Emma's face lit up with maternal pride. "He practices so hard. I wish I could afford proper lessons for him." "Perhaps we could discuss that sometime," Alex suggested carefully. "There's an excellent music school." "That, Alex," Emma interrupted gently, "you know I can't accept." I know," he smiled. "Your independence is another one of the things I admire about you." The music shifted to another song, but they continued swaying together. Emma noticed Noah watching them, with sleepy satisfaction from their table, his head propped on his hand. "I think someone's ready to head home," Alex observed. Emma nodded reluctantly. "It's way past his bedtime." They made their way back to the table, where Noah was fighting to keep his eyes open. Alex insisted on driving them home, and Emma was too tired to argue. In his sleek black car, Noah curled up against Emma's shoulder in the back seat, drifting off almost immediately. The city lights streamed past the windows like falling stars. "I had a wonderful time tonight," Alex said softly, meeting Emma's eyes in the rearview mirror. "So did we," Emma replied, unconsciously running her fingers through Noah's hair. "Though I'm sure your usual gala companions are more sophisticated than us." "My usual gala companions," Alex chuckled, "are more interested in my bank account than my company." He paused at a red light, turning to look at them. "Thank you, Emma." "For what?" "For letting me be part of your lives," he said simply. "Even just a little bit." Emma felt tears prick at her eyes, overwhelmed by the sincerity in his voice. She looked down at Noah's peaceful face, remembering how naturally he had taken to Alex, how freely he had shared his music tonight. The car glided through the quiet streets, carrying them home under a canopy of city stars. Sunlight streamed through Emma's worn curtains, painting golden stripes across her small bedroom. She lay in bed, her simple alarm clock showing 6:15 a.m., but she'd been awake for nearly an hour. Her mind kept drifting back to last night's gala, to the warmth of Alex's hand on her waist as they danced, to the pride in his voice when he introduced her to his friends. "Mommy, are you awake?" Noah's voice carried from the kitchen, followed by the clatter of cereal boxes. "Can I wear my fancy clothes to school today?" Emma smiled, pushing back her covers. "No, honey, those are just for special occasions." She padded into the kitchen, still in her faded flannel pajamas, to find Noah already dressed in his school uniform, but with his fancy bow tie from the gala clipped crookedly to his collar. "But I want to look nice like Mr. Hayes," Noah protested, spooning Cheerios into his bowl. Milk splashed onto the table as he talked excitedly. "Did you see how he knew everybody? And when he danced with you, Mommy, you looked just like a princess." Heat crept into Emma's cheeks. "Noah, careful with the milk," she said, grabbing a dish towel. But her son was unstoppable this morning. And remember when he said my piano playing was the best part of the whole party? Can we go to his house sometime? He said he has a really big piano. Noah, Emma began, but her gentle warning was interrupted by more enthusiastic chatter. And Jenny from my class won't believe I went to a real fancy party. Can Mr. Hayes come to school sometime to prove it, please? Emma busied herself making toast, trying to ignore the warm flutter in her chest at each mention of Alex's name. Eat your breakfast, sweetie. We need to leave in 20 minutes. The morning routine felt different somehow. As Emma pulled her hair into its usual neat bun and donned her gray housekeeping uniform, memories of last night kept interrupting her thoughts, the sparkle of crystal chandeliers, the sweet melody of the waltz, Alex's surprising laugh at Noah's jokes. At the hotel, Emma could feel the difference as soon as she walked through the staff entrance. Conversations hushed as she passed. Martha and Julie, who usually shared morning coffee with her in the break room, suddenly found their cleaning carts fascinating. "Good morning," Emma said brightly, refusing to let their behavior bother her. She grabbed her cart and checklist, but Mrs. Randall's sharp voice cut through the awkward silence. "Emma, a word?" The supervisor's thin lips were pressed into an even thinner line. In the small office, Mrs. Randall closed the door with deliberate slowness. "I understand you attended the Hayes Foundation gala last night." "Yes, Mr. Hayes invited my son to play piano," Emma replied, keeping her voice steady. Mrs. Randall's eyebrows arched. "Indeed. And I suppose all that dancing was part of Noah's performance too." "I don't see how that's relevant to my work, Mrs. Randall." Emma straightened her spine, though her hands trembled slightly. "Everything is relevant when it involves the owner of this hotel," Mrs. Randall snapped. "Do you have any idea how this looks? The gossip it's causing?" "Nothing is happening between Mr. Hayes and me," Emma insisted. But even as she said it, she felt the flutter of something like hope in her chest. "He's simply been kind to my son." "Kind, Mrs.?" Randall's laugh was sharp. "Billionaires aren't kind to hotel maids without reason, Emma. Watch yourself. I'd hate to see you get hurt. Or worse, lose your job." Emma left the office with her cheeks burning, but she held her head high as she pushed her cart down the hallway. Throughout the morning, she caught snippets of whispered conversations. "Did you hear about the maid who went to the gala? I heard he bought her a designer dress. Poor thing probably thinks she's Cinderella." Emma focused on her work, scrubbing bathrooms and changing linens with extra vigor. But she couldn't completely squash the tiny spark of joy that kept flickering in her heart when she remembered how Alex had looked at her last night like she was something precious. Around noon, she was restocking towels in room 412 when there was a knock at the door. "Housekeeping," she called automatically. "Emma?" Alex's voice made her drop the stack of washcloths she was holding. "May I come in?" She opened the door, very aware of her uniform, and the cleaning cart behind her. Alex stood there in another impeccable suit, but his smile was warm and slightly nervous. "I hope I'm not interrupting," he said. "No. I mean, yes, but—" Emma stumbled over her words, then took a deep breath. "Is everything all right?" "Everything's fine. I just wanted to thank you again for coming last night. Noah's performance was the highlight of the evening." Emma smiled despite herself. "He hasn't stopped talking about it. Or about you. Actually, that's why I'm here." Alex ran a hand through his hair. A surprisingly human gesture that made him seem less like an untouchable billionaire. "I was wondering if it would be all right if I took Noah to the Children's Symphony this weekend? You too, of course," he added quickly. "They're doing a special program about young musicians, and I thought he might enjoy it." Emma's first instinct was to refuse. It was too much, too dangerous to hope. But she remembered Noah's face last night, shining with joy as he played his simple piece on the grand piano, and how Alex had applauded louder than anyone. Yes, she found herself saying. "I think he'd love that." Alex's smile brightened the whole room. "Wonderful. I'll have my assistant send you the details." He hesitated, then added softly, "And, Emma, thank you for trusting me." After he left, Emma leaned against the wall, her heart racing. "Nothing is happening," she told herself firmly. "He's just being kind." But deep inside, That spark of hope grew a little brighter, warming her from within like a candle's gentle flame. Through the open door, she could hear the whispers starting again, but for once, she didn't care. Sometimes, she thought, touching the spot where Alex's hand had rested during their dance, a little hope was worth the risk. The spring morning bloomed bright and clear as Emma helped Noah tie his shoelaces. Her son couldn't stop bouncing with excitement. Alex was taking them to the city zoo. A car horn beeped outside their apartment building. "He's here!" Noah sprinted to the window, pressing his nose against the glass. "Mommy, look, it's a different car today." Instead of his usual sleek business sedan, Alex had arrived in a casual SUV, dressed in jeans and a light blue polo shirt that made him look more like a dad than a billionaire. Emma's heart did a little flip at the sight. "Good morning." Alex's smile was warm as they approached. He helped Noah climb into the back seat, making sure his seatbelt was secure. "I thought we could use something more practical for our adventure today." The drive to the zoo was filled with Noah's chatter about which animals he wanted to see first. Emma sat quietly in the passenger seat, sneaking glances at Alex as he engaged enthusiastically with Noah's every question. She couldn't remember the last time someone had made this kind of effort for them. At the entrance, Alex insisted on buying their tickets despite Emma's protests. "Please," he said softly, so only she could hear. "Let me do this for you both." Noah's eyes grew wide as they entered the zoo. Colorful signs pointed in different directions. African safari this way, polar bears that way. Alex pulled out a zoo map, kneeling beside Noah to help him plan their route. "Lions first," Noah declared, grabbing both their hands and pulling them forward. Emma felt a warmth spread through her chest at how natural it felt, the three of them walking together. They spent the morning moving from exhibit to exhibit. At the lion enclosure, Alex lifted Noah onto his shoulders for a better view. "Look, Mommy," Noah called down to her. "I can see the baby cubs." Emma watched as Alex pointed out different animals to Noah, explaining facts about each one with patience and enthusiasm. He seemed to know exactly how to talk to a 6-year-old, never condescending, always engaging. Near lunchtime, they stopped at the zoo's ice cream stand. Noah's eyes lit up at the rainbow of flavors. "Can I have chocolate and vanilla?" he asked hopefully. "Of course you can, buddy," Alex replied, then turned to Emma. "What's your favorite flavor?" "Oh, I don't need any," Emma started to say, but Alex was already ordering 3 double scoops. They sat on a sunny bench, ice cream dripping down their fingers. Noah had chocolate smeared across his chin, making both adults laugh. Without thinking, Emma reached over with a napkin to wipe his face, just as Alex did the same thing. Their hands brushed, and Emma felt that familiar flutter in her stomach. An elderly couple walked past their bench, smiling warmly. "What a beautiful family," the woman commented to her husband, loud enough for them to hear. Emma felt her cheeks flush, but before she could correct them, they had moved on. She glanced at Alex, expecting to see discomfort, but instead found him looking at her with such tenderness it made her breath catch. They visited the penguin house next, where Noah pressed his face against the glass, giggling at their waddling. A zookeeper was giving a presentation about their feeding habits, and Alex listened just as intently as Noah did, asking questions that made the keeper's face light up with enthusiasm. "You really know how to talk to people," Emma observed quietly as they walked to the next exhibit. Alex shrugged, looking almost shy. "I just try to show genuine interest. Everyone has something to teach us if we're willing to learn." By late afternoon, Noah's energy was finally beginning to fade. They stopped at the gift shop on their way out, where Alex bought him a stuffed penguin, despite Emma's protests that he'd already done too much. "Today has been perfect," Alex said softly, as they watched Noah clutching his new toy in the back seat, eyes heavy with contentment. "Thank you for letting me be part of it." Emma felt tears prick at her eyes. "We should be thanking you. I can't remember the last time we had a day like this." Back at their apartment, Noah was barely awake enough to change into his pajamas. Emma tucked him into bed, but before she could turn out the light, he grabbed her hand. "Mommy," he whispered, his voice heavy with sleep. "Maybe God sent him." Emma's heart clenched. She kissed his forehead and switched off the lamp, then padded to her own room. In the darkness, she finally let the tears fall. Tears of gratitude, of fear, of hope she barely dared to feel. Through her thin curtains, she could see the city lights twinkling like stars. For the first time in years, she allowed herself to imagine a future different from the one she'd resigned herself to. But with that hope came terror. Terror of having it all snatched away, of Noah getting hurt, of her heart being broken again. She pressed her face into her pillow to muffle her quiet sobs, remembering the simple joy of walking hand in hand with Alex and Noah, of being mistaken for a real family. The memory of Alex's gentle smile, of Noah's laughter, of ice cream in the sunshine. It all felt like a dream she wasn't quite ready to wake up from. Monday morning arrived with an unusual buzz in the hotel lobby. Emma noticed the whispers and stares as soon as she walked in, but she kept her head high, focusing on getting to the staff room to clock in. Inside, a group of maids huddled around something, their faces animated with gossip. They scattered when Emma entered, leaving behind a glossy magazine on the break room table. Her heart stopped when she saw it. There, splashed across the cover, was a photo of her dancing with Alex at the gala. The headline screamed in bold red letters, "Gold digger maid targets billionaire." Below it, smaller photos showed them at the zoo. Alex carrying Noah on his shoulders, the three of them sharing ice cream. Moments that had felt so pure, now twisted into something ugly. Emma's hands trembled as she picked up the magazine. Inside, more photos spread across several pages, each caption more vicious than the last. Social climbing single mom. Sets sights on city's most eligible bachelor. Sources say she's after his money. Hotel maid's plot to trap a billionaire. Well, well. Mrs. Randall's sharp voice cut through Emma's shock. Her supervisor stood in the doorway, arms crossed, lips curled in a satisfied smirk. "I suppose now we know why you've been so distracted lately." "It's not what you think," Emma whispered, her throat tight. "These stories aren't true." "Save it!" Mrs. Randall's voice dripped with disdain. "The board of directors is meeting right now to discuss this situation. Until further notice, you're suspended without pay." "What?" Emma's voice cracked. "But I haven't done anything wrong. Having an inappropriate relationship with the owner? Bringing scandal to this establishment?" Mrs. Price's Randall's eyes glittered with malice. "Turn in your keys and uniform. Security will escort you out." Emma's legs felt weak as she changed out of her uniform in the locker room. Tears burned behind her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. Not here. Not where they could see. The walk through the lobby felt endless. Every eye was on her. Guests, staff, everyone seemed to be whispering, pointing, judging. The magazine was everywhere, its garish headlines screaming her shame to the world. Outside, the morning had turned gray and cold. Emma wrapped her arms around herself, trying to hold herself together as she walked home. Her phone buzzed continuously. Messages from unknown numbers, some offering money for her story, others filled with hate and judgment. She deleted them all without reading, her hands shaking so badly she could barely hold her phone. One message caught her eye, from Alex. "Emma, I just saw the articles. I'm so sorry. Please let me help." She turned off her phone. The apartment felt suffocating when she got home. Noah was at school, thank God. She couldn't bear the thought of him seeing her like this. She sank onto the couch, finally letting the tears come. How had everything gone so wrong? Those beautiful moments at the gala, the perfect day at the zoo, all of it poisoned now by cruel headlines and vicious lies. The afternoon crawled by in a haze of anxiety and shame. Emma tried to figure out how she would pay rent without her job, how she would explain this to Noah, how she would face her neighbors who had surely seen the magazines by now. At 3:15, she forced herself to pull it together. Noah would be home from school soon, and she needed to be strong for him. She splashed cold water on her face, practiced her smile in the mirror until it looked almost natural. The knock came at 6:30, just as she was serving Noah his dinner. 2 sharp raps that made her stomach clench with dread. Through the peephole, she saw 2 women in professional attire, holding clipboards. Her heart sank as she opened the door. "Miss Carter?" I'm Sandra Matthews from Child Protective Services, and this is my colleague Lisa Warren. May we come in?" Emma's mouth went dry. "Now isn't a good time. My son is having dinner." "I'm afraid this can't wait," Sandra said firmly, already stepping forward. "We've received some concerning reports about your situation." Emma's legs felt like water as she led them into the small living room. Noah looked up from his macaroni and cheese, his eyes wide with curiosity. "Hi, buddy," Lisa said with practiced warmth. "Would you mind playing in your room for a few minutes while we talk to your mom?" Noah looked at Emma uncertainly. She nodded, trying to keep her face calm. "Go ahead, sweetheart. Take your dinner with you. It's okay just this once." Once Noah was out of earshot, Sandra opened her clipboard. "Miss Carter, we're here because of some serious concerns about Noah's living situation. We've received reports of possible instability in the home environment." "Instability?" Emma's voice shook. "I don't understand." Lisa pulled out the magazine. "These articles raise questions about your judgment, Miss Carter. Your relationship with Mr. Kenser Hayes, the loss of your job, the potential exploitation of your position." "None of that is true," Emma struggled to keep her voice down. "Those stories are lies. Alex, Mr. Hayes, is just a friend who showed kindness to me and my son." "And yet, you've lost your job over it," Sandra noted, writing something down. "How do you plan to support Noah now?" "I'll find another job," Emma said firmly, though her heart raced. "I have savings. We'll be fine." "Miss Carter," Lisa leaned forward, her voice gentle but firm. "We need to ensure Noah has a stable environment. These articles suggest a pattern of questionable decisions that could impact his well-being." Emma felt the walls closing in. "Please," she whispered. "Noah is everything to me. I'm a good mother." "We'll need to conduct a full assessment," Sandra said, making more notes. "Home visits, interviews with Noah's teachers, a review of your financial situation. In the meantime, we strongly suggest you avoid any further contact with Mr. Hayes. It would help demonstrate your commitment to providing stability for Noah." The words hit Emma like physical blows. Everything she'd feared was coming true, her reputation destroyed, her ability to care for Noah questioned, all because she'd dared to hope for something more. "We'll be in touch to schedule follow-up visits," Lisa said, standing. "Please, don't leave town without notifying us first." Emma walked them to the door in a daze. As it closed behind them, she heard Noah's small voice from his bedroom. "Mommy, are you okay?" She pressed her forehead against the cool wood of the door, trying to find strength. "Everything's fine, baby," she called back, her voice barely steady. "Just finish your dinner." Emma paced her tiny living room, tears streaming down her face as she waited for Alex to arrive. Noah was at a neighbor's apartment. She couldn't let him see this confrontation. The stack of tabloids on her coffee table seemed to mock her, their cruel headlines burning into her mind. A gentle knock at the door made her jump. Taking a deep breath, she opened it to find Alex standing there, his usually perfect appearance slightly disheveled, worry etched across his face. "Emma, I came as soon as I heard. I'm so sorry about all of this." He stepped inside, reaching for her hand, but she pulled away. "Sorry?" Her voice cracked. "I lost my job today, Alex. They suspended me pending an investigation into inappropriate relationships with management." She wrapped her arms around herself, trying to hold it together. "And then Child Services showed up. They're questioning my fitness as a mother because of these tabloid stories." Alex's face darkened with anger. "I'll handle this. I'll make calls. Get the best lawyers." "No!" Emma cut him off sharply. "That's exactly what I don't want. More of your world, your money, your influence trying to fix everything." She grabbed one of the magazines and thrust it at him. "Look at what they're saying about me, about Noah." "They're calling me a gold digger, saying I engineered everything, even that first coffee spill." "Nobody who knows you would believe that," Alex insisted, taking a step toward her. "Emma, please, let me help." She shook her head, tears falling faster now. "You don't understand. This isn't just about the headlines or the job. You dragged me into your world without thinking about the consequences. I was invisible before, just another maid doing her job. Now I'm being torn apart in the press, my neighbors whisper when I walk by, and worst of all. Her voice broke. They're threatening to take my son. Alex's face paled. I would never let that happen. Emma, I care about you and Noah more than— Stop. Emma held up her hand. Just stop. Care about us. Then where were you when these stories first broke? Where were you when reporters started camping outside our building? Where were you when my supervisor suspended me with that smug look on her face? Her voice rose with each question, years of carefully contained emotion spilling out. I was trying to handle things quietly, behind the scenes, Alex explained, running a hand through his hair in frustration. I thought if I made a public statement, it would only feed the media frenzy. Emma laughed bitterly. Behind the scenes? Of course. Because that's how your world works, isn't it? Pull strings, make calls, throw money at problems, until they go away. She picked up another magazine, this one featuring photos of Noah at the zoo. But my world is right here, Alex. It's making rent and keeping my son safe and maintaining what little dignity I have left. Emma, please. Alex's voice softened, taking on a pleading tone she'd never heard before. I know I messed up. I should have protected you better, but don't push me away. Let me make this right. She shook her head, wiping tears from her cheeks. You can't make it right, don't you see? This was never going to work. We're from different worlds, Alex. I was foolish to think. She trailed off, remembering those magical moments at the gala, at the zoo, when everything had seemed possible. To think what? Alex pressed, his own eyes glistening now. That we could be happy? That Noah could have a father figure? That you deserved love? Stop it. Emma's voice cracked with pain. You need to go, and you can't see Noah anymore. Alex stumbled back as if she'd struck him. Emma, no, don't do this. Noah needs stability, she cried out. He needs a normal life, not this circus, not false hopes about a family that can never be. She hugged herself tighter, forcing out the words that would end it all. Please, Alex, just go. Don't call, don't visit, just leave us alone. Alex stood there, devastation written across his features. For a moment, he looked like he might argue further, might fight for what they'd begun to build. But then his shoulders slumped, and Emma saw the exact moment he accepted her decision. If that's what you really want, he said quietly, moving toward the door. He paused with his hand on the handle, turning back one last time. I never meant to hurt you, Emma. Or Noah. You have to believe that. Emma couldn't speak past the lump in her throat. She just nodded, wrapping her arms tighter around herself as if they could hold her breaking heart together. Alex opened the door, hesitated for one more moment, then walked out. Emma listened to his footsteps, fade down the hallway, heard the distant sound of his car starting up outside. Only when she was sure he was gone did she finally let herself collapse onto the couch, violent sobs racking her body. In the sudden, crushing silence of her apartment, Emma cried for everything she'd lost. Her job, her dignity, and most painfully, the dream of happiness she'd briefly allowed herself to believe in. The morning sun barely filtered through Emma's apartment windows as she pulled on her worn cleaning shoes. Her new routine felt like a step backward. Cleaning private homes instead of the hotel, scrubbing toilets and floors for cash under the table. But it was all she could find after the suspension. Noah, honey, time for school, she called softly, knocking on his bedroom door. There was no answer, just like the past few mornings. Opening the door, she found him still in bed, covers pulled up to his chin. Come on, sweetie, we can't be late. Noah rolled over slowly, his usual morning chatter absent. His bright eyes had lost their spark, and Emma's heart ached at the change in her normally bubbly son. I don't feel good, Mommy, he mumbled. Emma sat on the edge of his bed, running her fingers through his messy hair. Is it your tummy again? She knew it wasn't really his stomach. It was heartache, pure and simple. Noah shook his head, pulling the covers tighter. Can Mr. Alex come over today? He asked in a small voice. Emma's throat tightened. No, honey. Remember what we talked about? Mr. Alex is very busy, and we need to give him space to do his important work. The lie tasted bitter on her tongue. After finally coaxing Noah out of bed and dropping him at school, Emma headed to her first cleaning job of the day. Mrs. Plaint Peterson's house was immaculate even before Emma arrived. The wealthy widow mainly hired her out of pity after hearing about the hotel incident through the neighborhood gossip chain. As Emma dusted the already spotless shelves, her mind wandered to better days. The memory of the gala, of feeling beautiful and valued, now seemed like a cruel dream. She caught her reflection in Mrs. Peterson's gleaming windows, dark circles under her eyes, hair pulled back in a messy ponytail, wearing old jeans and a faded t-shirt. The elegant woman who had danced with a billionaire seemed like a stranger now. "Emma?" Mrs. Peterson's voice startled her. "There's some extra casserole in the fridge. Please, take it home to that sweet boy of yours." Emma forced a smile, shame burning her cheeks. "That's very kind, but we're doing fine, really." "Of course, dear." Mrs. Peterson's pitying look made Emma want to scream. "I just worry, with everything that happened." At her next job, Emma scrubbed a bathtub until her hands were raw, trying to drown out the whispers that followed her everywhere. The neighbors' concerned glances, the playground mothers who pulled their children away when she arrived to pick up Noah, the gossip that wouldn't die down. It was all becoming unbearable. That evening, after serving Noah a simple dinner of pasta, Emma noticed him pushing the food around his plate. "Aren't you hungry, sweetheart?" "Remember when Mr. Alex took us for pizza?" Noah asked quietly. "And he showed me how to make the pepper flakes dance by tapping the shaker just right?" Emma's chest tightened. "Noah, why can't we see him anymore? Did I do something wrong?" "No, baby, no." Emma moved to kneel beside his chair, pulling him into a hug. "You didn't do anything wrong sometimes. Sometimes grown-ups have complicated reasons for the things they do. But none of this is your fault." Later that night, after tucking Noah in, Emma sank to her knees beside her own bed. "Please, God," she whispered, her voice breaking, "I don't understand. I tried to do everything right. I worked hard. I raised my son alone. I kept my dignity." Tears fell onto her clasped hands. "Why did you let me hope? Why did you let us believe we could have more?" The silence that answered her prayers felt heavier each night. Her faith, once an unshakable foundation, was crumbling under the weight of her circumstances. Every Sunday in church, she found herself going through the motions, the familiar hymns and prayers feeling hollow. The days blurred together in a cycle of cleaning jobs, forced smiles, and sleepless nights. Emma took on more work, cleaning offices after hours and doing laundry for elderly neighbors. Her hands grew calloused, her back ached constantly, but she refused to let Noah see her exhaustion. One particularly difficult evening, after working 12 hours straight, Emma found Noah's bedroom quiet. Too quiet. Usually, even when he was subdued, she could hear him playing with his toys, or talking to himself. Opening his door slowly, she found him curled up on his bed, fast asleep. In his small hands, clutched against his chest, was a photograph. Emma's heart clenched as she gently eased it from his fingers. It was from their day at the zoo, Noah sitting on Alex's shoulders, both of them beaming at the camera while Emma looked up at them laughing. The edges of the photo were worn, as if Noah had been holding it often. Emma sank to the floor beside Noah's bed, pressing her hand to her mouth to stifle a sob. Her little boy's face, even in sleep, looked troubled, his fingers still curled around the phantom photograph. She brushed his hair back gently, noting how he'd started wearing the blue t-shirt Alex had complimented almost every day. The moonlight streaming through Noah's window illuminated his small form, and Emma was struck by how vulnerable he looked. She had thought she was protecting him by pushing Alex away, by retreating to their simple life. But watching her son clutch that photo like a lifeline, she realized she might have broken more than just her own heart. The city lights twinkled through the floor-to-ceiling windows of Alex's penthouse apartment, casting long shadows across the polished marble floors. He sat in his leather armchair, an untouched glass of expensive red wine on the side table beside him. The bottle had cost more than what Emma made in a week, he realized, with a bitter taste in his mouth. His gaze drifted to the empty spaces of his pristine home. Everything was perfect, too perfect. Designer furniture arranged just so, artwork worth millions adorning the walls, but no warmth, no laughter. No crayon drawings stuck to the refrigerator or tiny shoes scattered by the door. "Sir?" His assistant Thomas appeared in the doorway. "The board meeting starts in 30 minutes. Alex didn't move. "Cancel it." "But sir, the Jensen merger," I said. "Cancel it." Alex's voice was firm but quiet. He picked up the wine glass, studying how the light caught the deep red liquid. "What's the point of all this, Thomas?" Thomas shifted uncomfortably. "Sir, this." Alex gestured around the room. "The meetings, the mergers, the money. What's it worth if you're alone?" Silence filled the room as Thomas considered his words carefully. "Is this about Ms. Carter and her son?" Alex set the glass down without drinking. "You should have seen Noah's face at the zoo, Thomas. The way his eyes lit up at every animal, the way he grabbed my hand to show me things. And Emma." His voice softened. "The way she finally let her guard down and smiled. Really smiled." He stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the city below. Somewhere out there, Emma was probably getting Noah ready for bed, maybe reading him a story. The thought made his chest ache. "I've spent 20 years building this empire," Alex continued. "I own half the buildings you can see from this window. But tonight, all I can think about is a little boy's piano recital at a charity gala and his mother's quiet strength." Thomas cleared his throat. "The tabloids were harsh, sir, but they'll move on to another story soon enough." Alex turned sharply. "Move on! They threatened her custody of Noah. They got her suspended from her job. They painted her as a gold digger when she's the most honest, hardworking person I've ever met." His voice rose with each word. "She refused my gifts. She insisted on paying her own way. He stopped, running a hand through his hair in frustration. Walking to his desk, Alex picked up a folded piece of paper. It was Noah's drawing from the zoo. 3 stick figures holding hands with "My family" written in crooked children's letters across the top. Noah had pressed it into his hand that day, beaming with pride. "I let them down, Thomas. I should have protected them. Instead, I stood back and watched while my world destroyed everything she'd worked so hard to build." He sank back into his chair, the drawing still in his hand. "Did you know she works 3 cleaning jobs now? I had her followed." He gave a hollow laugh. "Not to stalk her, to make sure she and Noah were okay. She's cleaning houses for cash, probably making less than minimum wage, because no proper cleaning service will hire her after the scandal." Thomas stepped forward. "What are you going to do, sir?" Alex was quiet for a long moment, staring at the drawing. Then he stood up, decision crystallizing in his eyes. "Call a press conference. Tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. sharp." "A press conference?" Thomas blinked in surprise. "What should I tell them it's about?" "Tell them Alexander Hayes has an important announcement about his personal life and recent media coverage." Alex's voice was steel now, all uncertainty gone. "And Thomas, make sure every major network is there. Every newspaper. Every tabloid that ran those stories about Emma. I want them all present." "Sir, are you sure about this?" "The board won't like—" "The board doesn't have to like it." Alex walked to his closet, pulling out a suit. "Call my lawyer, too. I want him to draft something before morning." "What exactly?" Alex turned, his face set with determination. "Documentation transferring 20% of Hayes Enterprises shares to a new charitable foundation, the Emma Carter Foundation for Single Parents." Thomas's mouth fell open. 20%? That's worth billions. "Yes, it is." Alex laid the suit out carefully. "And I'm going to announce it on live television, right after I tell the world exactly what kind of woman Emma Carter really is. Then we'll see who the tabloids call a gold digger." He picked up his phone, scrolling through his contacts. "Get me the PR team, too. I want them here in an hour to prep my statement, and find out which reporter wrote that first hit piece about Emma. Make sure they're in the front row tomorrow." Thomas nodded, already typing on his tablet. "And Ms. Carter? Should we notify her about the press conference?" Alex paused, looking again at Noah's drawing. "No. She'd only try to stop me. Sometimes you have to risk everything to fix what you've broken." He squared his shoulders. "It's time I proved to Emma that some things matter more than money." Thomas hurried out to make the calls, leaving Alex alone with his thoughts. He walked back to the window, pressing his forehead against the cool glass. Somewhere in the city, a little boy was probably asking his mother when they would see Mr. Hayes again. Tomorrow, Alex would make sure that boy got his answer. He pulled out his phone and looked at the last photo he had of the three of them, taken at the zoo. Emma's genuine smile, Noah's excited grin, his own arm protectively around them both. That was real wealth, he realized. That was what he should have been fighting to protect all along. The night stretched ahead as Alex began preparing for the most important presentation of his life. Not to shareholders or board members, but to the court of public opinion. Tomorrow he would risk his reputation, his business relationships, and billions of dollars, all for a chance to make things right. Because some things were worth more than money. Some things were priceless, like the sound of Noah's laughter, like Emma's quiet strength, like the feeling of being part of a real family, even if just for a few precious moments. He picked up his phone again as it buzzed with messages from Thomas, confirming the press conference arrangements. Tomorrow morning, Alexander Hayes would show the world what truly mattered to him, and he could only pray it wouldn't be too late. Camera flashes erupted like lightning as Alex Hayes stepped up to the podium in the grand ballroom of the Hayes Grand Hotel. His usual polished appearance was slightly rumpled, his tie slightly askew, dark circles under his eyes betraying sleepless nights. But his jaw was set with determination as he faced the sea of reporters. Mrs. Randall lurked at the back of the room, her arms crossed and lips pursed in disapproval. She had positioned herself strategically near the service entrance, where several maids peeked through, whispering among themselves. "Thank you all for coming today," Alex began, his voice steady despite his racing heart. "I've called this press conference to address the recent media coverage concerning Emma Carter and her son Noah." The reporters leaned forward, hunger in their eyes. Several cameras zoomed in on his face. "The stories you've published paint a picture of a gold digger trying to trap a wealthy man." Alex's knuckles whitened as he gripped the podium. "Nothing could be further from the truth. The woman you've slandered is one of the most honorable people I've ever met." He pulled out a small stack of note cards, but set them aside, unused. "When I first met Emma Carter, she accidentally spilled coffee on my suit. Instead of accepting my offer to replace her son's concert outfit, she refused, protecting her dignity even at personal cost. That integrity struck me then, and it strikes me now." A murmur rippled through the crowd. Several reporters scribbled furiously in their notepads. "Emma Carter works 2 jobs to support her son. She teaches him values, faith, and the importance of hard work. She represents thousands of single mothers across this country who sacrifice everything for their children, yet society often looks down on them or ignores them entirely." Mrs. Randall's face had turned an interesting shade of purple. Some of the maids were now openly watching, their cleaning supplies forgotten in their hands. "Today, I'm announcing the creation of the Carter Foundation for Single-Parent Support, with an initial donation of $50 million. Alex's voice grew stronger with each word. "This foundation will provide educational scholarships, job training, and emergency assistance to single parents working to build better lives for their families." The reporters erupted with questions, but Alex raised his hand for silence. "Furthermore, I'm implementing new policies across all Hayes properties to provide better support for working parents, including on-site childcare, flexible scheduling, and improved healthcare benefits." He looked directly at Mrs. Randall as he said this, his expression stern. "Emma Carter didn't trap me or try to snag a billionaire. She showed me what true wealth looks like. It's not in bank accounts or real estate portfolios. It's in the strength of a mother's love, the dignity of honest work, and the faith to keep going when the world judges you unfairly." Alex stepped back from the podium, then seemed to remember something and stepped forward again. "One last thing. To those who mocked her modest dress at the charity gala, she outshone every designer gown in the room because she wore something far more valuable: grace, under pressure, and unshakable dignity." The ballroom exploded with questions. "Mr. Hayes, are you and Miss Carter romantically involved? Is this a publicity stunt? What about the boy calling you daddy? But Alex simply shook his head and stepped away from the podium. His PR team moved in to handle the follow-up questions as he slipped out through a side door. Meanwhile, in her small apartment across town, Emma sat frozen on her worn couch, watching the press conference unfold on her old television set. Noah was at school, and the quiet apartment seemed to echo with Alex's words. Tears streamed down her face as she watched the man she'd pushed away defend her honor so publicly. Her hands trembled as she reached for her worn Bible on the side table, the one her late husband had given her. The same Bible that had sustained her through his death, through years of struggling alone, through the recent scandal. On screen, reporters continued dissecting Alex's announcement, their tone notably different now. The words, inspiring, dignity, and respect floated from the TV speakers, replacing gold digger and scandal. Some were already calling her story a symbol of hope for working single mothers everywhere. Emma's phone began buzzing with messages from coworkers and neighbors, but she couldn't look away from the screen. Her vision blurred with tears as she watched footage of Alex announcing the foundation in her name. $50 million. More money than she could even imagine, all to help people like her. The tissue box emptied as she sat there, overwhelmed by the public vindication, by Alex's words, by the sheer magnitude of his gesture. But more than anything by the way he'd seen her, really seen her, not as a maid or a charity case, but as someone worthy of respect and admiration. When the news cycle finally moved on to other stories, Emma remained on her couch, tears still flowing freely. The afternoon sun slanted through her window, catching on the framed photo of Noah's latest school picture, his bright smile so much like his father's. Next to it sat the drawing he'd made of the three of them, herself, Noah, and Alex, the one she'd hidden away in a drawer but had recently found herself looking at more and more often. Her phone buzzed again, this time with a news alert. The headline read, Hayes Hotels announces major policy changes benefiting working parents. Below it was a photo of Alex at the podium, his face earnest and determined as he spoke about her dignity and grace. Fresh tears spilled down Emma's cheeks as she finally understood the true magnitude of what Alex had done. He hadn't just defended her, he'd used his position and influence to create real change for people like her. People who worked hard every day, who sacrificed for their children, who needed just a little help to build better lives. She curled up on the couch, pressing her hands to her heart as if to contain the overwhelming emotions threatening to burst from her chest. The TV droned on, but she no longer heard it, lost in thoughts of coffee spills and charity galas, of zoo visits and piano recitals, of a man who could have had anything but chose to see the true worth of a humble maid and her son. The morning sun cast long shadows across Emma's modest apartment complex as Alex Hayes walked up the cracked concrete path. Gone was his usual tailored suit. Instead, he wore simple khakis and a blue button-down shirt. His shoulders were tense, his steps measured and uncertain. Mrs. Peterson, the elderly neighbor who always seemed to know everyone's business, peered through her lace curtains. 2 doors down, the Martinez family paused their car washing to stare. Even the kids playing hopscotch stopped to whisper and point. Alex's hand hesitated at Emma's door. The peeling paint and worn welcome mat were a far cry from his penthouse, but right now, this shabby door felt more important than any boardroom he'd ever entered. He took a deep breath and knocked softly. Inside, Emma froze at the kitchen sink, soap suds dripping from her hands. Noah looked up from his coloring book at the small dining table, crayon paused mid-stroke. Through the thin walls, they could hear Mrs. Peterson's muffled voice, "It's that billionaire again!" Emma's heart hammered in her chest. She'd watched his press conference yesterday on their small TV, had seen him stand before the world and defend her honor. But the hurt was still fresh, the fear of scandal still raw. Another gentle knock. "Emma?" Alex's voice was quiet, almost hesitant. "Please, I just want to talk." Noah bounced in his chair, eyes bright with hope. "Mommy, it's Mr. Hayes!" Emma dried her hands slowly on a worn dish towel, buying time. Through the window, she could see more neighbors gathering, pretending to water plants or check mail. Their curiosity was palpable. "Emma," Alex called again. "I know I messed up. I should have protected you better. Protected Noah better." His voice cracked slightly on Noah's name. "I'm not here as Alexander Hayes, CEO. I'm just Alex. A man who misses your smile and Noah's laughter." In the kitchen, Noah had abandoned his coloring and pressed his ear against the wall, listening intently. Emma closed her eyes, remembering the warmth of Alex's hand as they danced at the gala, the gentle way he'd helped Noah practice piano, the genuine respect in his eyes when he looked at her, not as a maid, but as a woman of worth. "The press conference wasn't about fixing my reputation," Alex continued, his voice thick with emotion. "It was about standing up for what matters, for who matters." He paused, and Emma could hear him lean against the doorframe. "I've spent my life building towers, but none of that means anything compared to the family we were starting to become." Mrs. Peterson had given up all pretense of discretion and stood openly in her doorway. The Martinez children had edged closer, their soapy sponges forgotten. Even Mr. Johnson, the grumpy retired postman, had emerged to witness the scene. "I don't expect you to forgive me right away," Alex said softly. I'm asking for a chance to earn back your trust, to prove that I care about you, both of you, more than any headline or business deal." Emma's hand trembled on the doorknob. Noah tugged at her sleeve, his eyes pleading. "Mommy, please. He sounds so sad." Through the peephole, Emma could see Alex, the powerful billionaire, standing vulnerably on her doorstep, his usual confidence replaced by genuine humility. He shifted his weight, started to turn away, then stopped and pulled something from his pocket. "I brought something," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "Noah's drawing. The one he made of the three of us. I found it in my briefcase yesterday." There was a rustle of paper. "It reminded me of what really matters." Emma's vision blurred with tears. She remembered Noah carefully coloring that picture, his small tongue sticking out in concentration as he drew them all holding hands. "I understand if you want me to leave," Alex continued. "But I needed you to know, both of you, that you've changed my life. You showed me what real wealth is. It's not in bank accounts or real estate. It's in morning smiles over coffee, in Noah's piano practice, in simple moments of just being together." The hallway fell silent. Even the neighborhood busybodies seemed to hold their breath. Emma's hand still rested on the doorknob, her heart pounding so loud she was sure everyone could hear it. Noah couldn't contain himself any longer. Before Emma could stop him, he darted forward and yanked the door open. In a flash of motion and childish enthusiasm, he launched himself at Alex, wrapping his arms tightly around the man's waist. "You came back?" Noah's voice was muffled against Alex's shirt. "I knew you would. I prayed every night." Alex stumbled slightly from the impact, his eyes wide with surprise and glistening with emotion. His hands automatically came up to steady Noah, to hold him close, but his gaze remained fixed on Emma, standing in the doorway, one hand still raised where the doorknob had been, tears streaming down her face. The neighbors watched, transfixed, as this simple scene played out on their ordinary street. Mrs. Peterson dabbed at her eyes with her apron. The Martinez children whispered excitedly to each other. Mr. Johnson tried to maintain his scowl but couldn't quite manage it. Noah's arms tightened around Alex, his small body trembling with emotion. "Don't go away again," he pleaded, his voice small but clear in the morning air. "Please?" The silence in Emma's small kitchen felt heavy as she pulled out a worn casserole dish. "It's nothing fancy," she said softly. "Just chicken and rice." Her hands trembled slightly as she set it on the counter. "It smells wonderful," Alex replied, standing awkwardly by the kitchen doorway. He had rolled up his sleeves, looking more human than billionaire in her humble space. Noah bounced between them, chattering excitedly as he set 3 mismatched plates on their small dining table. "Mommy makes the best chicken. And guess what? I helped with the rice." Emma managed a small smile, watching her son's enthusiasm break through the tension. "Noah, honey, why don't you wash your hands first?" As Noah scampered off to the bathroom, Emma and Alex found themselves alone. She busied herself with serving the food, afraid to meet his eyes. "Emma," Alex began, his voice gentle, "I know I don't deserve." "Let's just," she interrupted, finally looking up. "Let's just eat first, okay?" He nodded, understanding in his eyes. When Noah returned, they settled around the small table, its surface slightly scratched from years of use. Emma noticed how Alex's broad shoulders seemed too big for her second-hand chairs, but he showed no discomfort. Noah said grace, his small voice filling the room with simple, pure faith. "Dear God, thank you for the food and for bringing Mr. Alex back. And please help Mommy smile more. Amen." Emma's cheeks flushed, but something in her chest loosened at her son's words. She watched as Alex helped Noah cut his chicken into bite-sized pieces, his movements careful and patient. The first few minutes passed in relative quiet, broken only by Noah's occasional comments about school and his upcoming music recital. But gradually, like ice melting in warm water, the stiffness began to dissolve. "Remember when we went to the zoo?" Noah asked suddenly. His fork paused midway to his mouth. "And the monkey made faces at Mr. Alex?" A laugh escaped Emma before she could stop it, remembering how the chimpanzee had seemed particularly interested in Alex that day. Alex chuckled too, his eyes crinkling at the corners. "That monkey had excellent taste in faces to mock," he said, making an exaggerated grimace that sent Noah into fits of giggles. As they finished their meal, the conversation flowed more naturally. Noah cleared his plate and asked to show Alex his new drawings. Emma nodded, watching them move to the small living room while she cleaned up. From the kitchen, she could hear Noah's excited voice explaining each crayon masterpiece, and Alex's genuine responses of interest and praise. The sound wrapped around her like a warm blanket, familiar and strange all at once. When she joined them, Alex was sitting on their worn couch, Noah beside him with a stack of papers. Emma settled into her favorite armchair, tucking her feet beneath her. "I lost my father, too," Alex said quietly, after Noah had finished showing his artwork. "I was older than Noah, but I remember how it felt." Emma's breath caught in her throat. In all their previous interactions, they'd never spoken about loss so directly. "Sometimes," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper, "I worry that Noah won't remember his father at all. He was so young when—" She trailed off, twisting her hands in her lap. "I think," Alex said carefully, "that faith helps us carry those memories, even when they're not our own." He glanced at Noah, who was now doodling contentedly on a fresh piece of paper. "My mother used to tell me that love leaves echoes. We might not always hear them clearly, but they're there." Emma felt tears prick at her eyes. "I pray about it a lot," she confessed. "About whether I'm doing enough, being enough." "You're more than enough, Emma." Alex's voice was firm but gentle. "The way you've raised Noah, the strength of your faith, your dignity through everything, it's remarkable." She looked down, embarrassed by his praise but warming inside. "I just try to do what's right, to show Noah that even when things are hard, we can still choose kindness." "Like when you didn't get mad about the coffee?" Noah piped up, making both adults laugh. "Exactly like that," Alex agreed, ruffling Noah's hair. "Your mom taught me something important that day." They talked more as evening settled in, about faith and second chances, about the way life sometimes takes unexpected turns. Noah contributed his own observations, his innocent wisdom making them both smile. Emma found herself sharing stories about Noah's father, small memories she usually kept tucked away. Alex listened with respect, occasionally offering his own experiences of grief and healing. The living room grew dimmer as the sun set, casting soft shadows through the thin curtains. Emma noticed Noah's responses becoming slower, his eyes heavy with sleep. He had curled up next to Alex on the couch, his small body gradually leaning more and more against the man's solid presence. When the conversation naturally lulled, Emma looked over to find Noah fast asleep, his head resting on Alex's shoulder. Her son's face was peaceful, one hand still clutching a crayon. Alex sat perfectly still, as if afraid to disturb the child's trust. The sight made Emma's heart twist with a mixture of fear and hope. She watched them silently, memorizing the moment, her little boy so completely at ease, and Alex's expression of wonder and tenderness as he looked down at Noah's sleeping face. A streetlight flickered on outside, casting a gentle glow through the window. In that soft light, Emma could see all the possibilities before them, beautiful and terrifying in equal measure. But for now, in this quiet moment, she allowed herself to simply be present, watching her son sleep safely against the shoulder of a man who had walked back into their lives, asking for a second chance. Emma sat at her small kitchen table, staring at the manila folder Alex had just placed before her. The morning sunlight streamed through her faded curtains, casting a warm glow across the papers inside. Her fingers traced the edge of the folder nervously as she listened to Alex explain. "The foundation needs someone who truly understands the struggles of single parents," Alex said, his voice gentle but earnest. "Someone with real experience, compassion, and integrity." Emma's heart fluttered. After weeks of odd cleaning jobs and scraping by, here was an opportunity she'd never imagined possible. But doubt crept in, making her shoulders tense. "I don't have any experience running a foundation," she admitted, looking down at her worn hands. "I'm just a—" "Don't say it," Alex interrupted firmly. "You're not just anything, Emma. You're exactly what we need." He pulled out a chair and sat down across from her. "You have something more valuable than a business degree or corporate experience. You understand what these families are going through because you've lived it." Noah's footsteps could be heard from his bedroom, where he was supposed to be doing homework. The familiar sound gave Emma courage to look up and meet Alex's gaze. "The position would involve coordinating support programs," Alex continued, opening the folder to show her the details. "Setting up workshops, connecting families with resources, organizing events. Your salary would be—" He pointed to a number that made Emma's eyes widen. That's too much," she whispered, shaking her head. "It's standard for the position," Alex assured her. "And you'd have full benefits, flexible hours to accommodate Noah's schedule, and—" he hesitated before adding softly, "a chance to help other mothers who are struggling like you once were." Emma's eyes filled with tears as she remembered those darkest days after losing Noah's father. The lonely nights, wondering how she'd make rent, the embarrassment of using food stamps, the prayers for just enough strength to make it through another day. "I could really help people?" she asked, her voice barely audible. "You already do," Alex replied. "I've seen how you treat everyone at the hotel with kindness, no matter their position. How you slip extra toiletries to the homeless woman who sleeps in the park. How you've helped other single moms in the building with childcare." He leaned forward, his expression serious. "Emma, you have a gift for seeing people's needs and meeting them with grace." She brushed away a tear, overwhelmed by his words and the magnitude of the opportunity before her. "But what if I fail?" "Then we'll figure it out together," Alex said simply. "I believe in you, Emma. More importantly, I think God has been preparing you for this very role." Emma's breath caught at that. She remembered all her prayers over the years, asking not just for provision but for purpose. Could this be the answer? "Can I?" she hesitated, then squared her shoulders. "Can I have some time to think about it?" "Of course." Alex nodded, standing up. "Take all the time you need." He headed toward the door but paused. "Just remember, Emma, sometimes the biggest act of faith is believing you deserve something good." After he left, Emma sat at the table for a long time, reading through every detail in the folder. The position seemed tailored for her, despite her lack of formal qualifications. It would allow her to use her experiences to help others while providing a stable future for Noah. She closed her eyes, remembering all the times she'd wished someone had been there to guide her through the maze of single parenthood. All the times she'd promised God that if she ever got the chance, she'd help others facing the same struggles. Noah wandered into the kitchen, climbing onto her lap despite being almost too big for it now. "What's that, Mommy?" he asked, pointing to the folder. It's a chance to help other families like ours," she explained carefully. "To work with Mr. Hayes and make things better for people who are having a hard time." Noah's face lit up. "Like when you help Ms. Rodriguez with her baby, or when you give sandwiches to the lady in the park." Emma hugged him close, marveling at how children could sometimes see things so clearly. "Yes, sweetheart. Just like that, but for lots more people." "You should do it, Mommy," Noah said with the simple confidence of a child. "You're good at helping people." Emma kissed the top of his head, breathing in the familiar scent of his shampoo. Then she reached for her phone and typed out a message to Alex. "I'll take the position." His reply came almost immediately. "The contract will be ready whenever you are." The next morning, Emma sat in Alex's office, sunlight streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows. The contract lay before her, detailed but fair, exactly as promised. Her hand trembled slightly as she picked up the pen. Before signing, she closed her eyes and whispered a prayer of gratitude. "Thank you, Lord, for making a way where there seemed to be none. Please help me use this blessing to bless others." Then, with steady hands and a full heart, Emma signed her name. The grand ballroom of the Hayes Foundation sparkled with elegant chandeliers and flowing champagne. Emma stood before the mirror in a modest but beautiful navy blue dress, her hands smoothing invisible wrinkles. The past few weeks, working at the foundation, had been a whirlwind of learning and growth, but tonight felt different, special. "Mommy, you look like a princess." Noah bounced beside her in his new suit, his dark curls neatly combed. His eyes shone with excitement. "Thank you, sweetheart." Emma bent down to straighten his little bow tie. "Remember what we practiced? You'll sit with Mrs. Thompson during the speeches, okay?" I know. Noah grinned, showing the gap where his front tooth had fallen out last week. "Alex already told me I'm the most important guest." The mention of Alex's name made Emma's heart skip. She glanced around the preparation room, taking in the elegant flower arrangements and the stack of programs outlining tonight's fundraiser for single-parent families. Mrs. Randall, her former supervisor, passed by outside the door. Their eyes met briefly through the gap. Instead of the usual contempt, Emma saw something new in the older woman's expression. Uncertainty. Maybe even respect. "It's time," called one of the event coordinators, poking her head in. "They're ready for you, Miss Carter." Emma took a deep breath, squeezing Noah's hand. Together, they walked through the corridor toward the main ballroom. The sound of conversation and clinking glasses grew louder with each step. "There you are." Alex appeared at her elbow, handsome in his tuxedo. His warm smile helped ease her nerves. "Ready?" Emma nodded, though her stomach was doing flips. The ballroom was filled with familiar faces, business leaders, philanthropists, and social figures who had once whispered about her. Now they turned toward her with curious expressions. "Ladies and gentlemen," Alex's voice carried across the room as he stepped up to the microphone. The crowd fell silent. "Thank you all for coming tonight to support the Hayes Foundation's new single-parent initiative." Emma stood at the edge of the stage, watching as Alex commanded the room's attention. Noah had scampered off to his seat, giving her a thumbs up. "Many of you know that this program is particularly close to my heart," Alex continued. "But what you may not know is that its inspiration comes from someone who taught me more about courage, dignity, and grace than anyone I've ever met." He turned, extending his hand toward Emma. Her legs felt wooden as she walked to join him at the podium. The spotlight was warm on her face. "Emma Carter isn't just our new community outreach coordinator," Alex said, his voice softening with genuine emotion. "She's someone I deeply admire. A woman who raised an incredible son on her own, who maintained her integrity through every challenge, who showed me what real strength looks like." The room was completely still. Emma felt tears threatening, but held them back, standing tall. "When I first met Emma," Alex's eyes crinkled with amusement, "she spilled coffee all over my favorite suit." Gentle laughter rippled through the crowd. Emma felt her cheeks flush, but she smiled at the memory. "But in that moment, and in every moment since, she has shown me what truly matters in life. Not expensive suits or business deals, but human dignity, compassion, the courage to stand up again after every setback." Emma saw several women in the audience dabbing at their eyes. Even some of the business executives who had once dismissed her were nodding thoughtfully. The Hayes Foundation's new initiative will provide support, education, and opportunities for single parents across our city, and there is no one better to lead this program than someone who has walked that difficult path herself, with unshakable faith and determination. Alex turned to Emma, his eyes full of pride. "Emma, would you like to say a few words?" She hadn't prepared for this, but looking out at the sea of faces, seeing Noah's beaming smile, feeling Alex's encouraging presence beside her, Emma found her voice. "Thank you," she said simply, her words clear and steady. "When I was younger, I never imagined standing here. Life had other plans for me, as it does for so many single parents. But I learned that sometimes our greatest challenges lead us to our greatest purpose." She paused, her heart full. "This initiative isn't just about financial support. It's about recognizing the dignity and potential in every parent who's struggling to make ends meet. About offering hope and a chance to build a better future." The applause started slowly, then swelled to fill the entire ballroom. Emma saw Mrs. Randall clapping, tears in her eyes. The society ladies, who had once whispered behind their hands, were now smiling warmly. Even the reporters who had written those cruel headlines months ago were scribbling notes with thoughtful expressions. As the applause continued, Alex touched Emma's elbow gently. She turned to meet his gaze, and in that moment, everything else seemed to fade away. His eyes held such tenderness, such profound appreciation, that Emma felt her heart might burst. They didn't need words. In that shared look was every unspoken promise, of understanding, of respect, of something deeper neither was quite ready to name. Noah's delighted laugh rang out from somewhere in the crowd, completing the perfect moment. The autumn evening wrapped the neighborhood in a gentle coolness, street lamps casting warm pools of light along the quiet sidewalk. Emma pulled her light cardigan closer as she walked beside Alex, their footsteps falling into an easy rhythm. The familiar streets of her modest neighborhood felt different tonight, somehow both ordinary and magical at the same time. "Noah's gotten so good at the piano," Alex remarked, breaking their comfortable silence. His hands were tucked into the pockets of his casual jacket, a far cry from the expensive suit he'd worn during their first coffee-soaked encounter. Emma smiled, pride warming her chest. "He practices every day after school now. Mrs. Thompson says he's a natural, like his mother, naturally gifted at everything she tries." Alex's voice held a note of admiration that made Emma's cheeks flush. They passed the corner store where, not so long ago, neighbors had whispered about them. Tonight, the owner waved cheerfully through the window. Emma waved back, marveling at how much had changed. "You know," Alex said, slowing his pace, "I've been thinking about that morning in the hotel lobby." Emma groaned softly. "The great coffee disaster? I still feel terrible about ruining your suit." "Don't." Alex stopped walking, turning to face her under the glow of a street lamp. His expression was earnest, almost vulnerable. "That morning, that accident, was the best mistake of my life." Emma's heart skipped a beat. She looked up at him, caught by the intensity in his eyes. "Before that day," he continued, "my life was just business deals and board meetings. Empty success. Then this beautiful, humble woman literally crashes into my world, spills coffee all over me, and refuses to let me buy her son a suit." He chuckled softly. "Do you know how rare it is to meet someone who cares more about dignity than money?" Emma's throat felt tight with emotion. "Alex, let me finish, please." He took her hands in his, and they felt warm despite the cool evening air. "When Noah said I was his daddy that day in the park, I was stunned. Not because it was awkward, but because for a split second, I wanted it to be true. I wanted to be part of your family, to deserve that kind of trust and love." Tears pricked at Emma's eyes. She thought of all the nights she'd prayed for guidance, all the times she'd pushed away hope because it felt safer than risking her heart again. "I know I messed up," Alex continued, his voice growing softer. "I should have protected you better from the media, from the gossip. But Emma, these past months, working together at the foundation, watching you help other single parents find their strength, it's shown me something incredible. You don't need my protection. You're the strongest person I know." A tear slipped down Emma's cheek. Alex reached up and gently brushed it away with his thumb. "I love your fierce independence," he said. "I love how you put Noah first, always. I love your faith, even when times are hard. I love the way you see the best in people, how you treat everyone with respect, whether they're a CEO or a custodian." His voice cracked slightly. "I love you, Emma Carter, and I'd be honored if you'd let me love both you and Noah. Not as a protector or a provider, but as a partner." Emma's heart felt too full for words. All the walls she'd built, all the defenses she'd maintained, they crumbled in the face of his honest declaration. She thought of Noah's drawings of their little family, tucked away in her drawer. She thought of Alex's patient kindness, his willingness to earn back their trust, his genuine joy in simply being with them. "I've been so scared," she whispered, her voice trembling. "Scared of hoping, scared of trusting, scared of letting anyone else into our lives. But you," she squeezed his hands, "you never tried to change us or fix us. You just wanted to be with us, exactly as we are." Alex waited, hardly breathing, as Emma gathered her courage. "I love you too," she said finally, the words feeling both terrifying and perfectly right. "I think I have for a while now. I love how you listen to Noah's endless stories about dinosaurs. I love how you remember everyone's names at the foundation. I love that you see me, really see me, not as a maid or a charity case, but just as me." Alex's face lit up with joy. He pulled her closer, one hand coming up to cup her cheek. The street lamp cast a soft glow around them, like their own private spotlight in the quiet evening. "May I?" he whispered, his eyes dropping to her lips. Emma nodded, her heart racing. As Alex leaned down to kiss her, she caught a flash of movement from her apartment window. There was Noah, his face pressed against the glass, watching them with undisguised delight. His small hands came together in excited claps, his joy visible even from the street. The kiss was gentle and sweet, full of promise and new beginnings. When they finally pulled apart, Emma couldn't help laughing at Noah's enthusiastic celebration from above. "I think we have an audience," she murmured. Alex looked up and waved at Noah, who waved back frantically. "Should we go up and tell him the good news?" "In a minute." Emma leaned into Alex's embrace, savoring the moment. "Let's just stay here for a little while." Above them, Noah continued his happy dance in the window, his innocent joy a perfect mirror of the love blooming beneath the street lamp's gentle glow. The morning sunlight streamed through the stained glass windows of St. Mary's Church, casting rainbow patterns across the wooden pews. Emma stood between Alex and Noah, their hands linked together as Pastor Roberts addressed the congregation. The familiar scent of wood polish and old hymnals filled the air, bringing comfort to Emma's racing heart. Noah fidgeted slightly in his Sunday best, but remained remarkably still for a 6-year-old. His small hand felt warm in Emma's as he looked up at Alex with adoring eyes. Alex caught the boy's gaze and gave him a gentle wink, causing Noah to beam with joy. "Today," Pastor Roberts announced, his voice carrying through the hushed sanctuary, "we gather to bless this family as they begin their journey together." His kind eyes swept over the three of them, and Emma felt tears threatening to spill. The Lord works in mysterious ways, sometimes through the smallest of incidents, even spilled coffee. A ripple of knowing laughter moved through the congregation. Emma felt her cheeks warm, but Alex's hand squeezed hers reassuringly. She glanced around at the familiar faces, her neighbors, co-workers from the foundation, and even Mrs. Randall, her former supervisor, who now wore a genuinely warm smile. "Would the congregation please stand and join me in prayer?" Pastor Roberts requested, raising his hands. The rustle of people rising filled the church. "Lord, we ask your blessing upon Emma, Alex, and young Noah as they join their lives together. Guide them with your wisdom, strengthen them with your love, and protect them with your grace." Emma closed her eyes as the pastor continued, feeling the weight of dozens of hands lifted toward them in prayer. Noah pressed closer to her side, and she could feel Alex's steady presence beside her. The morning light warmed her face through the windows, and for the first time in years she felt completely at peace. As the prayer concluded, the congregation responded with a heartfelt "Amen." Pastor Roberts stepped forward, placing a hand on Noah's head. "May God bless this child with the father's love he has longed for," he said softly. then turned to Emma and Alex. "And may he bless this union with his endless grace and mercy." After the service, they made their way through the receiving line of well-wishers. Noah proudly showed off his new tie to anyone who would look, explaining that Daddy Alex had helped him pick it out. Each time he said those words, Emma's heart swelled with gratitude. Later that afternoon, they drove to Hillcrest Park, their special place where so many of their important moments had occurred. The late afternoon sun painted the sky in brilliant shades of orange and pink as they walked up the familiar path to their favorite spot. The city spread out below them, a tapestry of buildings and streets bathed in golden light. A gentle breeze carried the scent of grass and wildflowers, and somewhere in the distance, a bird sang its evening song. Emma spread out the checkered blanket they'd brought, and the three of them settled down to watch nature's show. Noah nestled between them, his head resting against Alex's chest as they watched the sun begin its descent. The boy's eyes were heavy with contentment, his small hand still holding onto Emma's sleeve, the peaceful moment wrapped around them like a warm embrace. "Look at those colors," Alex murmured, pointing to where the sun touched the horizon. Purple clouds drifted across the canvas of the sky, their edges rimmed with gold. Emma watched as Noah's eyes widened at the spectacular display. A comfortable silence fell over them as they sat together, this little family formed by fate and strengthened by love. Emma thought about the long journey that had brought them here, the struggles, the tears, the moments of doubt, and finally, the joy that had blossomed from an embarrassing accident in a hotel lobby. Noah shifted slightly, looking up at Alex with those innocent eyes that could melt the hardest heart. His voice was soft but clear in the evening air as he whispered, "Now I do have a daddy." Emma's heart filled to bursting as she watched Alex pull Noah closer, dropping a kiss on top of the boy's head. The setting sun painted their faces in warm light as Alex reached for Emma's hand, bringing it to his lips. His eyes met hers, full of love and gratitude for the spilled coffee that had changed everything. The sun dipped lower on the horizon, casting long shadows across the hilltop park. In this perfect moment, Emma felt the truth of Pastor Robert's words from that morning. God did indeed work in mysterious ways, turning life's little accidents into the greatest of blessings. What would you do if you were in their place? Comment your answer below, and let's see how you'd rewrite the ending. If you enjoyed the story of Emma Carter, I handpicked the next story that you will enjoy. Please don't miss this one. Click here to watch it.